Our sign language interpreters are ready to go, and if you are using that service tonight, they will be switching places.
All right, so we're going to call this meeting to order. This is the Owen J. Roberts Board of School Directors regular business meeting. Before we start with our regular board meeting, the entire school board and I want to take a moment to share our thoughts and commitment with you. While we have only been working together for about 5 months, one thing I can say confidently about each person on this board is that every single one of us is here because we want to do what we can to help this district be the best it can be. We are parents and citizens just like you. We have commitments to our families, our careers, and our community just like you. We share many of the same hopes and concerns that you do. We have all been impacted by global, national, and local challenges of recent months, just as you have been. We are real people just like you. Our mission for the Owen J. Roberts School District is to inspire each student for success today and greatness tomorrow. Our distinguished students go on to prestigious schools, move on to esteemed trades, and hold a wide variety of careers. We have qualified, hardworking, and dedicated staff who are driven to help our students be successful. And we have an incredibly strong, caring community that wants to see our district succeed. We believe it is important to support our community through action. It is especially important for those of us in public positions to explicitly reject any language or action that diminishes the experience of any individual or group simply because of the color of their skin. We believe that racial equity matters in our district and that establishing an inclusive environment for our students will provide a positive influence that will live beyond their public education. We are also committed to ensuring that every student feels safe. Tonight, we will be taking action to engage a third party who will help us improve the resources and practices needed to provide a safe, secure, and outstanding educational experience so our children can realize their full potential as individuals and as members of society. This is our path forward to not only learn what past practices need to be changed, but to partner with and support our current team of teachers, administration, and our superintendent in their accountability to abide by responsive, ethical, and safe practices for our kids. Our children will know that the OJR community cares for them, will nurture them, and will protect them. We, the school board, wholeheartedly believe in our vision statement of doing the right thing at the right time for the right reasons. We will show this commitment through action, and we will meet the challenges before us head on in a transparent, responsive, and timely manner. All right, item 2.1, executive session announcement. The Board of School Directors met on the following dates in executive session to discuss items in one or more of the following areas: security, personnel, and legal matters. An executive session was held on June 11th, 2020 and June 15th, 2020. Item 3, superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mrs. Prophet. So we have, to start my report out, we have some student recognition. So tonight we are recognizing our students that will be going on to serve in the military. So those students that we're recognizing tonight, if you would raise your hand, and I know that all of you know how to do that by clicking on participants and using the raise hand feature. Our tech support is going to allow you to remove your video and to unmute your mic. So raise your hand and they will assist you. We have a number of students that will be going into the military. So while we are in the process of identifying those students, this evening we will be recognizing Griffin Anderson, Nick Hagan, AJ Hirsch, Olivia Lafferty, Andrew Morrissey, hope I said that right, Andrew, Jeremiah Pike, TJ Reynolds, Kurt Sayers, and Selena Yeager. All right, so I was told that Nick Hagan would be joining us this evening. So Nick, where are you? Unmute your mic and your video.
Nicholas Hayden is unmuted. For the
All right.
public, please lower your hands until public comment.
Right, we're just looking for the students that we are recognizing at this time. Nick, congratulations. Tell us about what your plans are now that you've graduated ONJ. Uh-oh, we can't hear Nick.
I think Nicholas is having internet issues at his house.
Yeah, I don't see him.
I think he's frozen. And I know, as often happens in these
I'll
cases.
be going to Virginia Tech on
So I would like the board to know, so Nick, we're having we can't hear you. It looks like you're frozen on our end, but I would like the board to know that you will be joining the United States Army ROTC in the fall. Congratulations for serving our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Olivia. Olivia's supposed to be on the call. Does anybody see Olivia Rafferty?
I do not.
How about Andrew Morrissey? Olivia will be attending Moravian College, the Army National, then going into the Army National Guard. Any sign of Andrew?
No.
Okay. Andrew will be going to the Citadel, the Military College of South Carolina. How about Jeremiah Pike?
Not on board.
Okay. Jeremiah will be going in, serving in the United States Air Force. Congratulations, Jeremiah. How about TJ Reynolds? There's a lot of people to look through. TJ Reynolds will be attending Penn State University and joining the Navy ROTC. Kurt Sayers, who I don't believe is on the call, will be going into the Army Reserves. Selena Yeager is also going into the military, and Griffin Anderson will be attending Montgomery County Community College and joining the United States Navy. So we congratulate all of our students who will be serving our country. Now on to my the rest of my report. So much has gone on since the last day of school. Seems like it was a long time ago. I want to begin this evening by thanking the parents of our Black and brown students who have emailed me their stories of discrimination and injustice. At first, I was heartbroken for you and I cried. Then I became outraged that systematic racism continues to exist in our great country. Our education system is not without fault in perpetuating the systematic inequities and institutional bias that many of our communities have accepted as normal. As the leader of the Owen J. Roberts School District, I am taking my outrage and using it to fuel my commitment to right these wrongs, correct these injustices, dismantle the systematic barriers, and ensure that every student in Owen J. Roberts has access to the opportunities to learn and achieve regardless of their skin color. The school board has reached out to the Pennsylvania School Board Association to discuss and apply the work that they recently performed in the Upper Dublin School District. And this summer, we are planning professional development for our teachers and administrators on engaging in uncomfortable conversations about race and discrimination among themselves and with students and families. Over the next several weeks, please watch for information from me on how you can get involved with these with this difficult but necessary work in our school district. Next, I want to talk to you briefly about our efforts to reopen schools. Thank you to the students, parents, and teachers who completed my survey regarding remote learning. Your input was utilized to help develop the summer programming and activities athletic health plan that you will be learning more about from Mrs. Profit. This plan is from July 1 to August 20th. Several weeks ago, when I emailed everyone the governor's preliminary guidelines for reopening schools, it mandated the development of a health and safety plan. By approving this plan tonight, we will be able to resume athletics, activities, extended school year program for special needs students, kinder camp, and Jumpstart, while piloting the CDC guidelines for reopening schools to the maximum extent feasible. In the next several weeks, students, parents, and teachers will receive more information about how they can get involved in developing the reopening plan for students to return in the fall. In receiving feedback from my parents' survey specific to students returning in the fall, 24% of the parents that participated in the survey indicated that they wish to continue with remote learning due to concerns about COVID-19. The plans for the OJR Cyber Academy have begun with curriculum supervisors and principals, academic coaches, and tech coaches reviewing various online platforms that were specifically developed for online learning. Principals will be contacting parents in late July to identify what students will be taking advantage of this opportunity. Parents have asked about what are we doing with specific areas that we have, with specific issues that we have encountered since school left out. Dr. Soter, along with our health and physical education teachers, have already begun revising our curriculum to better educate our students on how to respond if a trusted adult makes them feel uncomfortable, along with ways to report inappropriate behavior on the part of any adult, including a teacher. Along those same lines, a representative from the Chester County Crime Victims will be here this week to review their educational programs available for both students and adults. Principals and curriculum supervisors will be identifying additional programming for our students from their presentation. Additionally, by the end of this week, all administrators will be trained on detecting adult grooming behavior. OJR is thankful for our longstanding educational partnership with the Chester County Crime Victims. This concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Lloyd. We're going to move on to item 4.1, which is public comment on agenda items. Information, proposals, and statements from individuals or delegations pertaining to voting agenda items number 7 through number 13 on the agenda. Speakers are to indicate your name, township of residence, and the item on the agenda to which your comments are addressed. Speakers will be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Please understand that this is not a time for dialogue with the board. Rather, the board will listen to all comments and consider them for future deliberation. So just a guideline for anyone that would like to make a comment, there is a raise hand function. Once you are unmuted, you will need to state your name and your township and the agenda item that you're commenting on.
I believe, Mrs. Prophet, that our solicitor, Brian Subers, wanted to make a statement. Also, we have public that has their mics unmuted. If you could please mute your microphones, double check that your microphones are muted. That helps to cut back on the background noise, cut down on the background noise. Thank you. Mr. Subers.
Certainly. Thank you, Dr. Lloyd. Just for purposes of clarification regarding the public comment to be received under 4.1 of the agenda this evening, I just wanted to clarify for those who may not have realized that due to the rescission of his resignation letter, any board action regarding the acceptance of Mr. Napervere's resignation has been removed from the agenda. Therefore, there is no agenda item relating to Mr. Napervere's employment. The district has welcomed and will continue to welcome public comment regarding their input relating to that topic. However, for tonight's purposes, any comment should be reserved for section 13 of the agenda. Also, I just would like to reiterate that for persons who are intending to make public comment this evening, that in addition to their name and their township of residence, we would request that they identify the specific agenda item that they wish to discuss or comment upon.
All right, Mr. San Francisco, we are ready to begin public comment.
So again, for public comment, if you're using a computer, click on participants and you'll see the raise hand feature. If you're using a mobile device, it's the 3 dots and you will see the raise hand feature there. The first public comment is Colleen Blue. I will unmute her right now.
Thank you, Mr. San Francisco. Good evening, everyone. Colleen Blue, North Coventry Township. Agenda item 12.11, approval of the health and safety plan for the opening of school. Item agenda 7.5. I have been attending board meetings longer than all the new members combined. As a current teacher of 44 years, you should know I have the students' best interests when it comes to my comments. You also know that as a retired cheerleading coach, I concentrate on the relationship of sports to academics. With that being said, my question to you is, last month you accepted the resignations of the high school head and assistant cheerleading coach. So, why is there no high school cheerleading coach and 2 assistant coach as required or suggested by PIAA being approved at this meeting? High school sports, according to PIAA, tentatively because of the COVID-19, are scheduled to begin with the approval of the athletics, health, and safety plan by the school governing board, meaning you, and the posting of such plan on the district's website, allowing schools to begin out-of-season activity and replaces the July 1st stipulation. The official mandatory or start date practice for cheer is August 17th. The board has a scheduled meeting on July 20th, which could be wasting the time of a cheer coach. Teams should not be having non-mandatory practices without a board-approved coach. Within this district and on Central Campus, you have a fully qualified coach with proven coaching experience to take a group of experienced middle school cheerleaders to a level where their performance during a basketball game fully exceeded the high school cheerleaders. In addition to me hearing that her parent communication is on a very positive note. This whole episode has the appearance of your repeated cronyism and lack of transparency without putting the athletes and their academics first. At the May 18th board meeting, you rescinded a number of essential coaching positions, and Governor Wolf has stated that school sports may begin July 1st. It is critical that the extended coaches be in place prior to July 1st, which means the coaches should be approved at this meeting unless you plan on sneaking them in. The board needs to be mindful of the needs of the athletes. Most athletes excel in the classroom because of the positive feedback given by coaches in the extracurricular activities, plus the added incentive of the eligibility requirement. Don't make this an added negativity towards the school district. There are already 3 strikes. Thank you, and please stay healthy.
Thank you, Mrs. Blute.
Our next is Gary Walk. Gary, you are unmuted.
Good evening, members of the school board, Dr. Lloyd, members of the public. As a special needs parent of a disabled student, I find that, I'm from East Coventry and I'm addressing 12.11 tonight. As a parent of a special needs student with disabilities and pre-existing health conditions, I don't feel like our plan is direct enough and puts our most vulnerable students at risk during the summer programs when they need to be in school. The busing situation seems to be not feasible. You use broad terms as when feasible, and that just seems like an out to me. Also, you make no considerations to having the children screened before they get on the bus. That puts every person on that bus and the driver that will have to be quarantined should that student show up at school with symptoms. I don't feel like this is in the best interest of our special needs students. I don't feel like this is in the best interest of our students with disabilities and prior health conditions, and I ask that you guys vote no tonight on the proposed plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walk.
Okay, the next public is, this is Heather McCreary. Mrs. McCreary, you are unmuted.
Right, am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
There's really bad like feedback, just so you guys know, out in the audience members. So I sent an email earlier today to the board, and I appreciate Ms. Prophet sending back to me an acknowledgement, but I wanted to briefly talk about the 12.11 reopening plan, and specifically what we talked about as late start and the buses. There's going to be a problem with the buses, and I think that it is time right now to implement the late start. We talked with the district for over 4 years about this, and I think it would be a time to offer people to let them drive their children to school to alleviate the busing problem. And with the COVID and the CDC, I don't see how we can follow the CDC on COVID and not follow the CDC recommendations that no secondary students should start earlier than 8:30 a.m. I also wanted to address the policy reading, and I apologize the number that I don't know what it is offhand in the agenda, but the organization, which is Board Policy 005, I think with the new board member going to be appointed soon, that the elimination of the one committee, which was extracurricular and interscholastic sports, is a mistake, considering with the COVID issues and everything that's important, that would be a meeting that would be standalone, and that Dr. Cuthbert and Mr. Richardson would have some impact upon letting public participate and understanding and making suggestions on how to get through with that, because it's my understanding right now in yellow, you cannot even throw a football and catch it. So I think that's important. And I don't want to overlook the cheerleaders or the band. And I feel like the band is going to be forgotten about. So they would be my comments, except for also regarding the budget item. I would take exception, Mr. Subers, with what you said, in that Mr. Napaver is not an issue at this meeting because all administrative salaries come in under that budgetary item. And so in this person's opinion, anything that relates to payment of anything on this budget for this school is a relevant topic at this point in the pre-agenda item. Thank you.
Ms. McCreary, could you just state your residence of township of residence for the record, please?
East Coventry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McCreary.
The next participant is Tina Grant.
Okay, am I
Grant.
unmuted?
Mrs. Grant, you are unmuted.
All right, thank you. Tina Grant, I am a taxpayer and business owner in West Vincent Township. I have some questions that were raised back in May. This is for agenda item 5.5, Financial Committee. And back in the May 18th meeting, I raised some questions for the O&J Roberts School Board, and I'm hoping to get answers to them. I'm going to repeat them now. In regard to Jody McMahon's district hearing, how much time and taxpayer money has been spent on the 2-year hearing based on hiring a hearing officer, a stenographer, legal counsel, legal representation, compiling and writing witness statements, research communications, copying and putting together an evidence binder, etc. How much money does the district owe Mrs. McMahon in back pay and restitution, as the impact on her health and the damages done to her reputation continue to accrue? When does the district intend to pay her in full, close her case, and return her to her position? This is all based on taxpayer funding. How many other situations of this kind are requiring taxpayer money? How much money could have gone into ensuring that our students were safe from genuine predators rather than into protecting predators? It is my opinion that as a taxpayer in the community that it would be apropos for the district to settle this equitably and justly before more taxpayer money is wasted. Our students deserve good teachers, and we deserve that our graduates and our children and our community members require some answers to these. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Grant.
Just note that Mr. Deal's video is locked, but he does not want to leave the meeting. can still hear and participate. The next public is Denise Wilson.
Am I unmuted?
Ms. Wilson, you are unmuted.
Thank you. My name is Denise Wilson from East Vincent Township, and I'm speaking first for the agenda 12.2, the selection of a new board president. I have been watching the board since the new members were sworn in, and have seen their contributions. I would request the board to consider John Deal as president. Mr. Deal clearly has a seasoned background, expertise, level-headed professional demeanor to be able to keep things above board regarding transparency in the current climate at OJR. I think it would be the best way forward for a district in turmoil. I also think that the rest of you need to consider where your priorities are. If you cannot make the district more forward instead of taking things piecemeal, or have your own personal agendas, then step down and let the numerous others that ran have a turn. Regarding the agenda item 12.6, the budget increase. I've attended and listened to all the financial meetings before and after COVID. I watched as long-awaited items like the gifted teacher and band uniforms and a new website were added. Now, despite the district being down for months and monies from the government to cover the losses, you have chopped these single items along with Odyssey of the Mind. With no chopping of any excess administrator or excess teachers who are no longer needed with the push for online learning. What is the excuse to not put pay to play in use this year? Have you looked reducing the gym teachers because of excess credits? What are you all doing? The recent disgrace with the sex cover-up and superintendent who has caused more embarrassment with the firing of the high school principal who she hired. I again call for the board to remove Dr. Susan Lloyd as the community no longer trusts her. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wilson.
Okay, the next person is Brian Budd. Brian, you are unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
My name is Brian Budd, East Coventry Township, and I'd like to address item 12.9 about the budget. Just have a general question about why the budget or the taxes were increased this year. Even though that we received $1 million for a real estate sale. And then how can a few districts that are around us manage to have a zero increase? So far, we've had an increase for at least the past 5 years. Just a general question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Budd.
Next participant is Emily Deal. Emily, you are unmuted.
Okay, this is Lisa Deal from Warwick Township. I'd like to speak on agenda item 12, new business. I noticed that you have listed a reorganization for president and vice president. I am wondering if you are also going to reorg committees, as the president is generally not a chairman of any committees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Deal.
We have Cynthia Zocali. But Mrs. Zocali does not have a microphone attached to her, so we're going to have to go to the next person, and it's going to be Jessica Marzella.
Yes, that's correct.
Jessica, you are unmuted.
Oh, hi. Good evening. Jessica Marzella, North Coventry Township. I would just like to comment about the, I'm also concerned about the ESY being in the school, as we were told by our daughter's IEP facilitator that it would be via Zoom meetings. So I would just like to know if this is actually going to be true or not, because of obviously the COVID-19. I don't want to put her at risk, as any other child. I don't want to be at risk because of the social gathering or social distance mandate. So if we could please just be a little bit more clearer about the ESY program for this summer. And I did not get any type of notification about transportation, and I feel that the transportation would not be a good fit because of the COVID-19 and the social distance, which you cannot really keep children safely distanced on a school bus when the bus is full. So that is my comment for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Marzella.
Okay, the next one is Loriana. Loriana, you are unmuted.
Hi, yes, I just wanted to refer back to what somebody else also raised their hand about. There's a large concern, a big concern about, I think it's 12.6 or 12.9, the fact that we're new to the area, but to see a budget increase and taxes going up consistently since 2014 is really discouraging to see when you look at areas like Downingtown that have had no increases, according to my research over the past 8 years. So I would love to, at some point in time, to someone to address that.
Can you give us your full name and your township, please?
Yes, Loriana Hernandez Aldama. We're in West Vincent Township.
Thank you.
It doesn't seem sustainable for families, especially given this economic times.
Thank you, Ms. Aldama.
Now we have Emily Deal. Emily,
Hello.
you are unmuted.
Hi, I'm Emily Deal, Warwick Township. I'm speaking on agenda item 12. I just wanted to ask the question, now that one of the school board members has resigned and there are only 8 members on the board, for full transparency, I wanted to know what happens in the case of a 4-4 tie on a vote. While I understand that that doesn't typically happen in these meetings, I think that just for everyone's knowledge, that would be a good point to clarify, just for transparency across the district.
I can clarify that, ma'am. The 4-4 tie would be the equivalent of a no vote. The passage of the budget would require a majority of the current board members, so a majority of 8 is 5.
Thank you, Mrs. Deal.
And I know Mrs. O'Callaghan does have her hand up, but she does not have a microphone to speak. So that will be the end of public comment.
Okay. All right, so item 5, board committee reports. We're going to start with 5.1, which is Buildings and Grounds Committee. Mrs. Booth?
Good evening. The Buildings and Grounds Committee last met in conjunction with the Finance Committee April 6, 2020. The decisions made delayed all but essential capital budget improvements and summer maintenance projects. Projects update. East Vincent Elementary School PTA funded pavilions project is in the planning phase. Completion is anticipated for the 2020-2021 school year opening. East Coventry Elementary Facility Upgrade Project closeout is in its final stages. SMJ General Contractor Landscape Punch List required inspections are in process of completion. Much progress has been made. However, we need the grass to grow to attain agency site approval, paving the way for full release of all escrow district funds. The high school chiller project HVAC completion is anticipated again prior to the start of the upcoming school year. This evening's Buildings and Grounds agenda items under new business. Agenda item 12.4, approval of third amendment to the purchase and sale agreement approved February 18th, 2020 between the Owen J. Roberts School District and Pennsylvania American Water Company to continue the sale closing date through December 31st, 2020 due to COVID-19 court and backlogs. Buyer and seller remain anxious to finalize sale. We have no funds from the sale yet. Agenda item 12.5, agreement with Chartwells to provide food service operations, i.e. breakfast and lunch for students, etc., for the Owen J. Roberts 2020-2021 school year. I would like to make an additional comment referencing the financial stress many in our Owen J. Roberts community and all public schools are experiencing this year and anticipate to do so in the near future. Buildings and Grounds Committee has been working in close concert with the Finance Committee with clear thought and purpose. You are utilizing all available financial resources today while looking towards the future to establish new guidelines for the Owen J. Roberts budget-making process, as well as generating long-term efficiencies in overall operations. Those of us in front of you are committed to addressing this challenge and have no doubt we intend to succeed. Administration has been greatly stressed during this fluid, daily revolving financial and educational challenge COVID-19 has brought down upon all of us. Thank you, administration. Our gratitude runs deep for your exercises in difficulty. Our Owen J. Roberts community needs us to remain focused. Mr. Paul Friel, Chair of Finance, will elaborate how we intend to proceed and the difficulty of our decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Booth. Item 5.2, Chester County Intermediate Unit, Mrs. Munson.
Due to the scheduling, we have not actually had another board meeting for CCIU since our last Owen J. Roberts board meeting. The next board meeting for CCIU is this Wednesday, the 17th.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Munson. Item 5.3, Curriculum and Instruction Committee, Mrs. DiMarino.
Yes, thank you. The Curriculum Committee met as part of the joint virtual board workshop on Monday, 1st, for the Pupil Services Committee and the Curriculum Committee. At that meeting, the board reviewed the current professional development required for all employees regarding mandated reporting, the current programming for students, recommendations for future professional development for employees, and recommendations for future programming for students. Dr. Markey discussed the training for staff and programming for students from school guidance counselors and presenters from the Crime Victim Center. Dr. Soder discussed the personal safety units of instruction that are part of the health curriculum. Recommendations include scheduling a Safe Touches program for second graders and having a program for third graders so those students did not have the chance to have this program in the spring due to the school closure. In addition, the Crimes Victim Center would provide the parent program for Safe Touches. The agency currently provides speakers for Health 2 classes, and a suggestion from the department was to have this be a separate assembly since many students take their health class online and won't have access to those speakers. Recommendations for professional development for the staff, including having on-site rather than virtual training in the fall for mandated reporting. And another recommendation was to provide another training for high school students for using the Safe to Say app, reminding students about the many different types of situations that they can use that app for to keep them safe. Thank you. That's my report, Mrs. Prophet.
Thank you, Mrs. DiMarino. Item 5.4, Extracurricular and Interscholastic Committee, Mrs. Stutzman.
This committee, the Extracurricular and Interscholastic Committee, has not met since our last board meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Stutzman. Item 5.5, Finance Committee, Mr. Friel.
Thank you. First, on the behalf of the Finance Committee, I wanted to thank all the staff at Owen J. Roberts for their responsiveness to the board as we adapted very quickly to rapidly changing economic reality of 2020. With a special thanks to Jackie Crumrine and the finance team and our superintendent for all their hard work. I'll be going in a little more detail tonight than on the process and the updates to budget over the course of the last several months, as I realize we have a wider audience who may not have followed or attended the Public Finance Committee meetings or the previous budget presentations. The budget process is an ongoing process that started before December of last year and our new board members' first meeting. The budget, since January, with the first public presentation of the proposed budget to the new school board, the board, along with the administration, has reviewed in detail each cost center and budget category at our public committee and board meetings. Specifically, the board reviewed proposed budget was presented and discussed during January 6th, March 2nd, March 9th, April 6th, May 4th committee meetings. And next year's final proposed budget is available on the district's website or by contacting Jackie Crumrine, our CFO. So on to tonight's agenda items, 12.6, 12.9, include items related to board approval of the proposed final budget for 2021. Next year's budget has been challenging due to the impact of COVID-19. And as a result of COVID-19, local revenue projections for the next year, 2021, decreased by $2.5 million from our original presentation in January to May 2020. In addition to the impact on the 2021 budget, the most significant economic impacts are most likely going to be felt next year. As states, the federal government, we're going to realize billions of dollars of revenue shortfall, and subsequent funding levels for education is very uncertain. The forecast for our budget is a deficit for the next 3 years. It is for this reason that the Finance Committee has taken a conservative approach and will look to apply some of the current expense savings due to the closure of school to help make up the budget shortfalls over that next 3-year period and allow O&J Roberts to mitigate impact to our students. And as I stated, revenue projections were down January to May about $2.5 million, that's lower than we anticipated. As a result, the Finance Committee and the administration reduced the proposed expenses from $114 million in January to $110.9 million, removing 3.1 of proposed spending. And despite the initial reduction, we still have a projected budget deficit this year and over the next 3 years due to the uncertainty of the local revenues. The capital budget project was also reduced, and only essential mandatory items are included. The most significant of which Mrs. Booth mentioned, is the HVAC installation at the high school. And as many of you know, the HVAC system failed and must be replaced this summer at a cost of approximately $2 million. This obviously further impacts our budget, and this was an item that we could not delay. We realized other school districts took a shorter term approach and reduced or eliminated tax this year, and took drastic steps using reserves or cutting programs or furloughing staff, directly impacting student education programs, and in our view, limit the options to respond to potentially even greater economic impact the following year. The entire O&J Roberts School Board and staff are committed to doing the right thing at the right time and for the right reasons. We take our responsibility to taxpayers and our mission seriously, and we believe this is the most prudent path forward for the district, given the uncertainty of future revenues for this district. We also recognize that Act 1 index provides a temptation to use as a budgeting target or starting point, and we are committed to adopting a different approach. We will begin immediately to budget for our school next year and look for every opportunity to reduce expense and utilize resources to move us below the Act 1 index. We have the ability to reopen this budget in 6 months if needed, as opportunities to adjust arise, and if it is appropriate, we will do so. We will begin and look at a 0 increase in expense as a base for next year. Obviously, with the recognition, we do have contracts in place that must be factored in, but that'll be our starting point, and we will move from that point and looking to balance our budget over the next few years. With This in mind, I draw your attention to item 12.16, and it's a parameters resolution authorizing the board to move forward on restructuring long-term debt due to favorable interest rates. We're estimating we can save about $1.7 million by doing this over the life of the bonds, and immediately we'll realize about $110,000 in annual debt service payments positive. Once we do that, and if we're successful doing that, that can be factored into the budget. And as a final note, I would like to thank the board members, all of whom have been invaluable in working collaboratively and professionally and in the best interest of the district. This has been a challenging year and probably much more than any of us anticipated. I believe this team is up for the challenge, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Friel. Item 5.6, Legislative and Policy Committee. Mr. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna butcher your name.
Melnizek.
Melnizek. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mrs. Prophet.
Ms. Prophet.
The Legislative and Policy Committee met last Tuesday, June 9th. This previously unscheduled meeting was held to look at all board policies in regards to student and employee safety, specifically those regarding sexual assault and abuse. Before the meeting, our Director of Human Resources, Danielle Hay, had given us a very detailed look into policies 103 and 104, which dealt with anti-harassment. And then also the last one, which I forgot, in regards and one in regards to student abuse. At the meeting itself, the committee determined that our policies do meet all state and federal requirements and are pretty sound. Our next step is to see how these policies are actually implemented. The committee also discussed changing the record retention schedule under policy 800. This schedule deals with how long we retain emails and other pieces of information. Currently, I believe it's 90 days, so we're looking into extending that period. In regards to the Pennsylvania School Board Association, they have recommended that policies 448 and 548 be incorporated into other policies, specifically 103 and 104. You'll see that later in our agenda. Policies 448 and 548 are slated to be requested to be deleted. And this does not mean that the policy contents are being deleted. It just means that those contents of those two policies will be incorporated back into 103 and 104. And that is the end of my report. Our next meeting is to be scheduled as we see fit, but probably within a month or two.
Thank you, Mr. Melnizek. Did I say that correctly?
Correct. Thank you.
Okay. Item 5.7, Personnel Committee, Mrs. Stutzman. I think you're muted, Lydia.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I don't know how that happened. I think Paul's playing jokes on me. Okay, so the Personnel Committee met on June 9th. Although it wasn't a typical committee meeting, it was a workshop for the board so that we could look into and educate ourselves more deeply on the related policies and also, more importantly, the procedures around things of the nature of allegations of employee misconduct. So Mrs. Hay took us through our various related policies, as Mr. Melnizek just referred to. We also were able to review all federal regulations and state regulations that the school adheres to around these subjects. We also went through employee training, both from an orientation perspective as well as ongoing training related to these subjects. And then finally, we went through what happens and what is the response to a complaint, and able to ask questions around those procedures. And this is the in efforts for us to continue to look into some of the concerns we've had recently. Again, it was a workshop, but we did open it up to the public. And I believe there are things out on our website if you are able to review that. We don't have another board meeting, committee meeting scheduled, but I do anticipate, as Mr. Malmasek said, that we may have another in the next month or two.
Thank you, Mrs. Stutzman. So item 5.8 is People Services and Special Education Committee. The People Services Committee met on June 1st with the Curriculum Committee for a joint workshop regarding our educational training for staff and students surrounding personal health and safety. As Mrs. DiMarino had mentioned, Dr. Marchini also presented recommendations for increased education, and the committee will review at our Committee of the Whole meeting on June 29th at 6 p.m. Pupil Services met on June 9th for a planning meeting for the June 11th committee meeting. At the meeting on June 11th, the committee reviewed our new health and safety plan for phased school reopening. As many of you are aware, on June 3rd, Governor Wolf outlined preliminary guidance for phased school reopening. The guidance allows for elementary and secondary schools in the state's yellow and green phases to resume in-person instruction and activities beginning on July 1st. Dr. Lloyd, the People Services Department, and various others worked swiftly to prepare our health and safety plan. This plan is listed as item 12.11 on the agenda for approval. Once the plan is approved, it will be posted to the website and submitted to the state. So what does this mean? OJR will be able to commence in-person ESY, and there will also be an optional online on July 6th, as well as driver's ed and kinder camp, sorry. We will also be able to begin sports practices, which I know many of our kids are thoroughly missing. This initial health and safety plan will serve as a great starting point for planning the fall school year. The committee felt it was imperative to seek public feedback as well and discussed opportunities for public engagement. This plan is very fluid as we move through this time, so please stay tuned. Item 5.9, Technology and Communications Committee, Mrs. Munson.
The Technology and Communications Committee has not met since our last meeting. We do have plans to put a meeting on the calendar, but it has not yet been scheduled.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Munson. All right, we're going to move on to item 6.1, motion to approve recommended routine matters consent items 6.2 through 6.12. The board will make a motion to approve the following routine matters, which are items 6.2 through 6.12 as consent items. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Field, any discussion?
Mrs. Prophet, it's John Deal. Just want to verify that you can hear me okay, given my technical difficulties. End of discussion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Just for protocol, Mrs. Crumrine, do you want me to say who says the first and second?
Yes, I would appreciate that.
Got it. All right. Item 7.1, motion to approve routine matters, consent item 7.2 through 7.5. The board will make a motion to approve the following routine matters, which are items 7.2 through 7.5 as action consent items. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Melnizek is the first, and then Mrs. Booth is the second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right. Item 8.1, board communication. Do we have any board communication, Mrs. Crumrine?
Yes, we do, Mrs. Prophet. We have 4 board communications that I was copied on at the time the agenda was released. The first communication was from Kristen Ackerman on May 17th, 2020. She's a concerned high school parent with comments related to student safety and the recent arrest of Mr. Rott. The second communication was from Dana, and my apologies if I don't get the last name pronounced correctly, Sifo, dated May 26th, 2020. She shared an approach for including stakeholders in the process for the reopening of schools in the fall. The next communication was from the Act 93 membership team, and that was regarding the resignation of School Board President Carl Miner. That was received on June 10th. And the last communication was from Mr. Michael Bonaducci, Teamsters 384, on June 10th, 2020 regarding the resignation of School Board President, Mr. Carl Miner. There are no additional board communications.
Thank you, Mrs. Crumrine. The board would also like to acknowledge we have received additional communications from the public regarding Mr. Miner and Mr. DePaper's resignations. As just a reminder, please copy the board secretary, Jackie Crumrine, if you would like the communications to be shared during the board meeting. Her contact information is listed on our website. All right, item 9.1, board discussion. So I have two items. The first is our third-party consultation. I'm gonna pass that along to Brian Subers.
Thank you, Ms. Prophet. By way of background, at last month's meeting, the board had directed me as solicitor to research possible third-party consultants that could assist the district and the board in regard to a review of the allegations raised in the May 10th, 2020 letter addressed to the board by former O&J Robert High School student government representatives alleging concerns about Mr. Roth's prior inappropriate behaviors, as well as whether district policies relating to sexual harassment were followed in regard to those matters. In addition, the board desired to conduct a broader audit of its policies and procedures with the goal, and more importantly, its actual practices and the implementation of its policies and procedures with the goal of enhancing the district's protection of its students and staff from any forms of harassment. I subsequently conducted that research and identified several potential consultants and have been directed to retain the services of Ms. Kelly Hodge. Ms. Hodge is an attorney. She's been practicing for over 20 years. She had formerly served as the district attorney of the city of Philadelphia, and in fact was the first African-American female to serve in that position. Ms. Hodge had also served as the first Title IX coordinator for the University of Virginia, and in that capacity had created and oversaw the implementation of the university's system-wide Title IX procedures and policies. And the anticipated completion of that review, both of those reviews, would be 6 to 8 weeks. So the goal is to have information and a report back to the board by the beginning of school year. However, I would just caution that that may be subject to any unforeseen circumstances that may arise during the course of that review.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. I'm not sure if any board members want to comment or discuss.
I think that given Ms. Hodges' extensive background as a Title IX officer, her experience in the university system, which I understand we have changes coming up this summer in terms of Title IX responsibilities, and I think she has familiarity with that structure. I think her efforts will be very helpful to us.
So thank you, Mr. Subers, for retaining them. Or retaining her.
I appreciate the action that we're taking, but I do just want to caution that we will get this done as soon as possible. As Mr. Subers elaborated, we must be careful on how we proceed, and our results will come in regarding those issues and as a result of proceeding with diligence. Thank you, Mr. Subers.
And we should probably also thank the students who made the original request. I think that it really is a matter of doing the right thing at the right time for the right reason. And we are going to see it through.
All right, so I'm going to move on to our next topic for board discussion. And this is obtaining a new board member. So the process that we've done in the past is we have advertised and taken applications, and then conducted interviews in the public and selected a new board member in the public. And the school code kind of lays out what the process looks like as well. But just wanted to get the board's feedback on next steps, so we can direct administration what to do.
And I would just like to reiterate that the requirement in the school board is that any vacancy in a board member seat be filled within 30 days of the date of that vacancy, and that it be completed by or accomplished by a majority vote of the remaining board members. There's very little other guidance. There is no other guidance, as a matter of fact, with respect to the school code requirements. Under the Sunshine Law, it does have to be done. Those decisions have to be made, including the interviews, have to be made in a sunshine meeting or a public meeting. The rest is within the discretion of the board, but as Ms. Prophet had indicated, the past practice had been to advertise the vacancy, accept resumes, and to determine appropriate candidates to interview and conduct those interviews before making their selection.
So we will need to, we'll need to hold a special school board meeting because the 30 days from which we accept Mr. Minor's resignation will be expired before we get to our new board meeting. So just to set the public's expectations.
And I wanted to clarify, Brian, you'd said 30 days from the date of his resignation, but it's 30 days from the date of accepting his resignation. Is that correct?
The effective date of his resignation, which would be your acceptance, presuming it's accepted today. Yes, it would be today.
Mrs. Prophet, for candidates who are interested, where is that advertised in terms of where they could send their resume?
Jackie, do you know the answer to that?
Or we can advertise it in the local paper, but we'll also post it on the website, and they'll be sending their applications to the board secretary. So
Okay.
I'll accumulate them and have them available.
Thank you. Sorry, John.
That was my
So
question.
then-
Thank you.
Then we would see every application that comes in. We don't know how many people will be interested in this. So does the board want to set some sort of parameters around how many people we would want to narrow it down to if there are a lot?
I think that's a good question, Ms. Munson. I think, if it's a few members, it makes a lot of sense to do everybody. But if 100 people apply, do it. I'd be interested in, Mrs. Booth, Ms. Prophet, you've been on this board and through this process before, in terms of how long we should advertise and then how quickly we should do these. Do you guys have an opinion what's a manageable timeline? And to Ms. Munson's point, a manageable number of folks to cap the public interviews too?
I'm going to let Melissa take this one just because she's done 2 now.
Yes.
This will be your
Yes.
third.
If I remember, I think both times we advertised for a week and we had a varied amounts of applicants. I think 13 is what we had the most, and we did interview all of them. We interviewed them in public. One thing I do want to say is in the past, we have not recorded the interviews, and this time I would like to make certain that we do. We probably will because we're going to be on Zoom, but even in case we won't be on Zoom, I would want to have all of those recorded, the interviews as well. That is how we did both of them. I think both times we were within the scope of being able to interview in one session and did not actually cap the numbers, but we don't know. I might suggest we wait the week and see how many do come in and then make an announcement. If it's manageable, interview all of them in public. And if we feel it's not manageable, go through maybe a process of picking a number depending on how many we get. That's my suggestion. Just one little thing. I do know if it's not done in 30 days, a
petition
judge
can be
a judge
upon,
won't even necessarily be a judge from our area. So we do need to get it done in time.
We'll get this
can't-
done in time.
Yes, we will.
So I'm sorry,
you.
did you mention how long the applications were up, or we were receiving?
No, they were up 1 week. if I
1 week,
remember
okay.
correct. Is
So
that right?
I do
1 week.
like that idea of 1 week. I think that
Mhm.
gives plenty of time for people to pull things together.
Right.
And then I think after that 1 week, I like the idea of seeing how many we have and then announcing how many we're gonna vet it down to if we need to.
Okay.
So Leslie, just to be clear, that would be 1 week from tomorrow. So we'd be looking at next Tuesday.
So I guess it would be 1 week from when Jackie posts it.
Right, I think how about 1 week from when the advertisement actually gets into the paper?
Oh, okay.
Right.
That-
And then secondly, just to clarify that even deliberations about the rules that we would apply to selection would absolutely need to be done in public. And I think we're all committed to following through on that.
Mhm.
Not that we have a choice, but I think that's the right thing to do, and just want to make sure the public is aware of that as well, that any narrowing or discussion of narrowing or anything like that would be fully in public.
Yes.
Correct, yes.
But what
Yeah.
about the list of questions that we intend to ask each candidate? Do we
What
need to have
did-
those discussions in public?
Well, what we did last time, unless somebody remembers differently, but each board member formed their own questions and had an opportunity to go around the table. And the questions actually kind of differed depending on the resume and the experience of those who were applying. I think it worked pretty well that way. We could come up with a group of consistent questions and then leave it open to board members to come up with questions maybe on the fly, depending on what is said during the process. I think we gave each interviewee 10 minutes to present themselves and 10 minutes to for the board to ask questions. That again depends on how many we're dealing with.
I think that's a very good point, Ms. Booth, to have an idea of like at least a core group of questions that are common. So at least we get a apples to apples comparison of responses between people who are interested. And then obviously people's experience and answers will drive potentially other questions there. But I would agree with you that a core group of 5 or 10 questions that everybody would answer seems like a smart way to allow us to compare.
Can I ask that this advertisement puts a date range, and that when we post it on the district, we put a date range as well, just so that there's no confusion?
Sure, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
And I can also pull, just look back to see if we had any common questions last time. for
Oh, that
you.
would be helpful.
I have one more clarifying question. If it were to happen that we had 100 applicants or whatever, and we had to narrow, we would have to have another public meeting in order to decide how we're going to narrow them?
Well, I think you should make you should do that at a public meeting. You should narrow the candidates, and then, you potentially would have to have an additional meeting to invite those candidates in for an interview.
So if we look at like a time perspective, I'm just going to pull up a calendar real quick and make sure that we get this done in enough time. If we were to put this advertisement out, say like midweek this week, wrap it up by next week, we would kind of have an understanding of how many applicants we have. And then we have, let's see, we have about till July 15th to have that selection done. So it gives us about like two and a half weeks or so.
We do have July 4th in there, though.
Yeah, so less than that. But.
Well, if we would need to narrow this, could we do that at the committee of the whole meeting that's scheduled for the 29th?
I was going to suggest that is, yeah.
Okay.
We can add that to the agenda.
It's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
So who's good at thinking up some good questions for interviewing?
I have some in mind.
All right.
And I had some from the last 2 times, so I can go back and look. I keep notes. I can go back and look at my notes. And,
if you're able to see any from the last one, Jackie, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you and Lydia would be a good, start for us. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions regarding the process or what we'd like the public to know?
Do we need a motion now, Leslie, to move this forward? If we're done, assuming we're done board discussion, do we need an action item to
I
approve?
think
the
it's just a directive.
Yeah, I would just direct the administration to advertise as discussed and go from there.
Thank you.
Okay, will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other discussion?
Just a quick clarification on, since it came up and I have the answer, the real estate sale from Mr. Budd.
Right.
You know, that was delayed because of the closure of courts for COVID-19. So that sale's not been, you know, gone through yet, and therefore could not be considered as part of the budget. Once that, assuming that the courts open up and we can do that, then we'll adjust accordingly. And then, you know, the other point on Downingtown versus like an O&J Roberts, it really comes down to commercial real estate base and residential tax base, where O&J Roberts does not have a commercial tax base, and it's all residential. So it varies very widely of the impact on the tax base and how that affects that Act 1 index. So it's definitely apples and oranges in certain, depending on the district you live in. So that was it.
And if I may, Ms. Prophet, as a follow-up to Mrs. Bluth's comment, we did a little research, and the cheerleading coach and assistant coach for the high school were approved on the March agenda.
Okay. Any other board discussion? No? All right. Item 10.1, old business. Do we have any old business? No? Okay. All right. Moving on to item 11. 11.1, motion to approve personnel matters, consent items 11.2 through 11.13. Do I have a motion? Sorry. Was it Mrs. DiMarino for first and Mr. Friel for second? Okay. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. And I believe, did we have a retirement in here?
We have two of the folks that have put in to retire. I believe on the call this evening, we've got Lynn Carroll and Eileen Hughes on the call. If you give us a wave, we promise not to put you on video. Just give us a wave so that we know that you're here. So our first retirement resolution is for Ms. Lynn Carroll. As an employee of the O&J Roberts School District for the past 21 years, has made a significant contribution to the students in the district. And whereas Ms. Carroll has given unselfishly of her time, talents, and energies in serving the youth of our community by performing her job to the best of her ability. And whereas Ms. Carroll has made a great impact upon the O&J Roberts School District now and in the future. And whereas Ms. Carroll's retirement is richly deserved and recognized as one of high honor and distinction. Therefore, be it resolved that the O&J Roberts School Board of School Directors, the administration, and fellow employees of the O&J Roberts School District express deep appreciation to Ms. Carroll for 21 years of loyal service and wish Ms. Carroll good health and continued success in future endeavors. Adopted by the O&J Roberts School Board on the 15th of May, on the 15th day of June of 2020. Next, we have Eileen Hughes. Eileen, if you're with us tonight, we understand that you're here. Just give us a wave so everybody knows where you are. And so your resolution, Eileen, reads, whereas Ms. Eileen Hughes, as the employee of the O&J Roberts School District for the past 25 years, has made a significant contribution to the students and the district. And whereas Ms. Hughes has given unselfishly of her time, talents, and energies in serving the youth of our community by performing her job to the best of her ability. And whereas Ms. Hughes has made a great impact upon the O&J Roberts School District now and in the future. And whereas Ms. Hughes' retirement is richly deserved and recognized as one of the high honors and distinction. Therefore, it be resolved that the O&J Roberts Board of School Directors the administration, and fellow employees of the Owen J. Roberts School District express deep appreciation to Ms. Hughes for 25 years of loyal service and wish Ms. Hughes good health and continued success in future endeavors. Adopted by the Board of School Directors of the Owen J. Roberts School District on the 15th day of June of 2020. Congratulations, ladies. We will get your resolutions to you in the mail. Well done. Well done. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a very long time here. We appreciate that. All right, we're going to move on to new business, item 12. 12.1, approval to accept the resignation of Carl Miner, school board member. Approval to accept the resignation of Carl Miner from the Board of School Directors effective June 10th, 2020 as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Oh, sorry, Mr. Deal first. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Booth second. Any discussion?
Just clarification, you said June 10th, it's June 15th. Are we accepting it?
I know, in the agenda, it's June 10th. So would, Mrs. Carmine, would that be effective June 10th then?
Because it's 30-day clock starts from our, when it's,
Yeah, that's a good point.
I thought it started from the day that we accepted it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so we would want to have it effective as of today's date, which is the date of acceptance.
Okay, so we're going to update this to be effective June 15th.
Correct.
All right, so I'm going to just backtrack and do the motion all over again, just because we changed the date and I want to make sure everyone's good. So approval to accept the resignation of Carl Miner from the Board of School Directors effective June 15th, 2020 as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Deal. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Booth, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 12.2, vote motion to fill vacancy in office of the Board of School Directors President. Let's see. So I will now open the floor to nominations for the office of President.
I'm going to move to nominate Ms. Leslie Prophet to the president.
Second.
All right, Leslie Prophet has been nominated for President. Are there any other nominations for President? Seeing none, and if there is no objection, I declare the nominations closed. Unless there's a motion to proceed differently, we will now vote for the nominees. When Mrs. Carmine calls your name,
Well,
please state
I
your
mean,
name.
you know what? I'm sorry, Ms. Prophet. There's only one nominee, so it would
Right.
just be, you could just make a motion to appoint Leslie Prophet as board president.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Motion, so moved.
Mrs. Stutzman, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Booth, any discussion?
Just one note of discussion, Mrs. Prophet. Thank you for all the work that you put in over the last 4 or 5 days. It certainly was something that we could not anticipate. It's a whirlwind, and I appreciate your leadership and responsiveness during this time.
Done a magnificent job in very difficult times. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. I just wanted to thank the board for your faith in me. Just want to echo the sentiment earlier and thanking each and every one of you for your commitment to this district. Over the past few months, I've watched all of you rise to the occasion and offer to help the district when it needs it. And it's truly been a pleasure to work with all of you. And I look forward to the future. All right. 12.3, motion to fill vacancy in office of the Board of School Directors Vice President.
I would like to nominate John Deal, please.
Okay, John Deal has been nominated for Vice President. Any other nominations?
I second the motion.
Okay, seeing none, I'm just going to ask for a motion. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Mr. Friel, Mr. Melnizak seconds. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Congrats, John.
Thanks,
And
Leslie.
I would like to second the sentiment of, I can't remember who it was who said it. If someone from the public spoke up, John, about what you have shown as a board member, and I appreciate that and thank you and look forward to working with both you and Leslie in these new positions.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate, I have complete faith in the both of you to help us through this. And I know it's been challenging, and I thank you both for stepping up. And I have faith in every board member here, and I have faith in both of you guys. And I really appreciate you guys stepping up and doing this. Thank you.
And I
Thanks,
look
Paul.
forward to working with the two of you in your new capacity.
Welcome
Thanks,
to the
everyone. Just one comment is maybe the thing that I learned more than anything is that election to the school board doesn't mean you're endowed with superhero powers like X-ray vision and some giant truth lasso. And I am still in the process of learning. And I know many of you have helped me along the way. And I guess I just ask for an ounce of patience during a very impatient time with the issues that face us. But Leslie, I look forward to working with you and Dr. Lloyd to try and get things on the right track, and the rest of the board as well. Thank you.
Thank you, John. All right. Item 12.4, approval for school board members, superintendent of schools, and central office staff to attend conferences. Approval for school board members, superintendent of schools, and central office staff to attend conferences that entail overnight travel, sponsored by accredited educational organizations and within budget allocations approved by the school board during the 2020-21 fiscal year. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Booth, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Deal, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, item 12.5, approval of policies for second reading. Approval of policies for second reading is recommended by the Legislative and Policy Committee from the May 11th, 2020 meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Mr. Friel, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Munson, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 12.6, approval of the 2020-21 governmental and proprietary funds budget. Approval for the governmental and proprietary funds budget as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion approved.
Mr. Friel, do I have a second?
Second.
All in, Mrs. Booth, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 12.7, approval of the 2020 Homestead and Farmstead Exclusion Resolution. Approval of the 2020 Homestead and Farmstead Exclusion Resolution as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Mr. Friel, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Booth, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 12.8, approval of a resolution establishing tax collector compensation procedures and rules. Approval of a resolution establishing tax collector compensation procedures and rules as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion approved.
Mr. Friel, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Deal, do I, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 12.9, approval of tax resolution for 2020-21 fiscal year. Approval of tax resolution for 2021 fiscal year as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Mr. Friel, do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Mrs. Booth, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 12.10, approval for authorization of budget transfers, fund transfers, and GASB 54 committed fund balance amounts associated with the final audited financial statements. Approval to authorize any budget transfers, funds transfers, and fund commitments for purposes such as PSERS rate stabilization fund and amounts committed for purposes of balancing future budgets provided sufficient funds are available for the completion of the 2021 financial reports with subsequent board approval of such necessary action and acceptance of the final audited financial statements. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Mr. Friel, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Melnazak, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 1211, approval of health and safety plan for reopening schools. Approval of health and safety plan for reopening schools as presented. The approval of this plan is being recommended by the Pupil Services and Special Education Committee from their June 11th, 2020 meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. DiMarino, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Munson, any discussion?
Just quickly on discussion on this one, as you know, I know a lot of these guidelines are passed by governmental entities, CDC, so on and so forth. How do we move forward in a world where things change like every other day? How, like, we're not calling board meetings to publicly say we're changing this plan. How's that handled and how is that communicated? We heard some public comment tonight that I think is rightfully concerned and just wants to stay obviously on top of this important issue.
I think, John, too, we discussed this as or it was discussed in committee as a living document, and I reiterate, how does that work? And as a living document, as updates are made, do we have to affirm them? And procedurally, what happens here so we can be efficient and responsive?
Right. Well, you know, we're very fortunate to be one of the very first school districts to adopt our plan, which will allow our students to come back sooner. Our plan will be monitored by the administrators, by the school nurses, the teachers, all the people that are being asked to implement this plan to keep our students safe. And so they will then be providing feedback from the very first day that those students arrive on our campus, whether they are coming here for driver's education or whether they are special education students coming. And we will begin the modification. So thankfully, these guidelines allow us to be flexible. They are expected to be flexible, and school districts are expected to adopt or adapt to the ever-changing needs that could arise. There's no way for us to anticipate what it will be like once we have a school full of students in the fall. We are fortunate that you're adopting this plan tonight, and that's going to allow us to bring a large number of students into into all schools, elementary, middle school, and high school. And so we will be able to revise the plan as we go, so that when we come together in July for feedback from all of our stakeholders, we will be able to know what worked, what didn't work. Throughout the summer, I will be coming back to you with recommendations for revising the plan. So I expect that we will start this plan on July 1st, and by the first board meeting, you'll be asked to adopt a revision to the plan. And I anticipate that that is going to occur throughout the entire school year, that as we see what's working, what's not working, we're revising the plan throughout the entire year.
Dr. Lloyd, has the Chester County Health Department, are we getting assessed as we go if we have outside agencies coming and looking or auditing? And I would just say, you know, with the heightened sensitivity and heightened degree here of concern, I think this is one of those places where a lot of communication, both with the board, obviously, but with the community on this is really important.
And so they consistently give us input into developing our plan and revising our plan. All Chester County schools do the same way with athletics, that we've received input from multiple sources to develop that plan. And we anticipate that we will continue to receive recommendations throughout the entire summer and probably, I would think, the entire year until there's a vaccine. That's what I think we should anticipate.
Dr. Lloyd, just one more question. I just want to make sure I'm clear. Let's say you bring the kids back, and after a couple of days, there's something we just didn't think about that makes all the practical sense in the world. Everybody agrees we should change it for the safety of our children. Do you have to wait until we as a board get back together to implement that?
No, I don't need to to wait to do that. Thankfully, I do not need to wait to do that. The common sense prevails, and we can make those adjustments. I just need to keep you informed of where we are with the plan and the modifications that we have made to the plan.
Okay, thank you.
And I would also like to, well, first I'll preface my statements by saying that I went through CDC guidelines and state guidelines and county guidelines, and there are a lot of pieces of information there, a lot of conflicting information, a lot of conflicting guidelines, and I really commend the staff for coming up with something this quickly that aligns with the Pennsylvania Department of Education requirement to have a plan in place before we open any of our school doors. But I do want to draw the public's attention to, there were sections in there that refer to a flexible attendance policy. And Dr. Lloyd, if you could tell us a little bit about what that means if a parent decides to allow their child to come back to school and then fears for their child's health and regrets, and wants to take them back to an online scenario.
And so we implemented a flexible attendance policy back when this pandemic first started. We had notified parents, and we've notified our employees that we would not be able to have the rather stringent policy that we have now with sick days. And so we anticipate that students could possibly end up quarantined, particularly if somebody in their family contracts COVID, that they will then not be able to attend school, and we will need to provide education for them in their homes. And so we will be working on that throughout the summer to have that flexibility. This summer, our students that will be attending ESY, if their parents are uncomfortable with their child returning so soon to school under our current health plan, we will have online learning. We will continue our remote learning for those students as well. So there's flexibility to move in and out of the programs that as needed for students. So we will meet students' needs as they arrive. And we will be encouraging, our principals will be encouraging, our special education supervisors will be encouraging parents to let us know what those needs are and how can we best meet those needs of our students and of our families.
Thank you.
And Dr. Lloyd, that applies for staff as well. If they need to be quarantined, you're going to be we're going to continue this flexibility of how I know that's a challenging thing, but just in terms of the realities of COVID-19, we've made accommodations for staff.
Exactly. And so as all of you are aware and the community is aware, we've reopened our offices. And so those measures are already in place for our staff that may not have been everybody's been working from home. And so for our staff that are not able to come in, we're still permitting that option of work from home for them if that is feasible for them to do that. Some staff members have elected to use their FMLA or other leave that is currently available under the new regulations that have been passed.
We did have a very good presentation from administration last week on this health plan, and I thought you might like to just to discuss the fact that some parents may elect and are expected to elect to deliver their children to the schools, which will probably take a little bit of the pressure off the number of buses that we have to run or the number of students on each bus.
So in my parent survey, one of the very last questions, well, there were two questions at the very end of that, the one question was, would you like to have your child continue in the online environment? And that's where you heard me come up with the 24% are interested in that. And my last question to parents was, if we reopen school in the fall, if we fully reopen school in the fall, would you consider transporting your child every day to school in order to assure their safety? And over 76% of the parents indicated that they would. And so we will be exploring that option. We already have many parents that drop their students off for school in the morning. And so we will be exploring that option further. We have school districts in Chester County that do what's called on-demand transportation, so that parents sign up for transportation, and then we just pick up the students that have signed up. Again, it's very flexible. If parents need that option's there, but it does permit us to provide more distance on those school buses. It's not feasible for us to add more school buses. We just reviewed the budget, and it's not feasible for us to add more school buses. But our parents are anxious for their students to come back to school, and so it may be feasible for more parents to transport their students than we have had in the past.
Thank you.
Dr. Lloyd, I would imagine as this continues into the fall, we'll have to look into the increased capacity of people driving their kids to school. And if it's a full time and everybody's coming to school, if there's a 20%, 70% increase, that will get pretty high in traffic. So,
exactly. And so when we develop that plan for the fall, which we'll be doing in July, we're going to need to anticipate those kinds of hurdles that we will need to be able to clear. And that certainly is one of them. We currently have security at all buildings, but we may need more security in order to manage the traffic that we would anticipate. Or we could do a staggered start, or maybe we'd allow parents to drop off their students earlier than they currently do. So those are all of the type of hurdles we're going to have to be able to clear for the fall.
yeah, thank you.
Just one last comment if we're wrapping up. I think this is, obviously we're in uncharted territory here, and I think I could speak for myself. I'm not without concern and recognition that this is, we're not sure what's going to work well, what's the right and best practices to do here, and it's going to evolve. So I really do appreciate the staff's just Herculean effort to get this right, recognizing that you might be changing this dramatically, and on the ground the reality might differ greatly from what we anticipate. So this is an imperfect decision we have to make here in terms of do we have it all correct. But I think moving forward, I think I appreciate the team and just the school board as well, all really focused on what's in the best interest of our children and given the most amount of flexibility both to the kids and parents, so that we can have everybody have an educational experience that meets their needs and make them make individual decisions on their safety. And certainly we want to be responsive to that. So that was all.
That's for sure. We are up for the challenge of reopening schools, and certainly we are headed in the right direction. There was some new information that came out about the improving numbers in Chester County. So we're going in the right direction.
There is one more thing that I know a lot of parents are trying to wrap their brains around that we haven't addressed yet, and that's wearing masks. I've seen some very amusing suppositions of things that might come out of teachers' mouths with a classroom full of students trying to deal with masks, especially at the elementary level. And I'm sure we'll have families that are all over from, I can't imagine sending my child with the mask to school to I can't imagine sending my child, which one did I say? Without. They'll be all over.
You got it.
So can you just give us a little bit of insight into how our building principals and our teachers will be handling those situations?
So, Mrs. Munson, I cannot imagine young children being required to wear masks. I couldn't, my poor grandchildren, when they needed to go to the pediatrician for a well visit, had to wear masks, and they were crying. They were just terrified. There isn't research to support wearing masks for children. Our staff will be wearing masks. We have shields, just like you're seeing the doctors wear, or sometimes now you're seeing them in grocery stores, because it's important for our students to be able to see the mouth of their teacher. And so parents are welcome to have their child wear a mask. And if that's what their preference is, our teachers will reinforce that for their child, but we will not be requiring our students to wear masks in the fall.
But at the same time, I believe we'll have mask recommendation posted as signs.
Yes, we do.
Right.
Oh, for our anybody coming into our schools, absolutely, absolutely. For any visitors, we won't be starting volunteers in the yellow phase. But visitors, I mean, there's people that have to come in and do business with our secretaries. There's people that need to come in and make repairs. So all visitors will need to have a mask when they enter the school. We won't be starting volunteers as long as we're in the yellow phase. And then once we are able to have volunteers in the school again, the volunteers will be required to wear masks. It's just children that we are not requiring wear masks.
Any more discussion?
Anything else you're wondering?
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, 12.12, approval of district insurance policies. Approval of district insurance policies for 2020-21 as presented. Do I have a motion?
Motion to pass.
Mr. Friel, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Booth, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 12.13, approval of waiver agreement and release. Approval of waiver agreement and release as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Booth, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Munson, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. 12.14, approval of Third Amendment to purchase and sale agreement. Approval of Third Amendment to purchase and sale agreement between the O.J. Roberts School District and Pennsylvania American Water Company to extend certain deadlines and change anticipated closing date as presented, and authorization for the district administration and board officers to enter additional amendments extending the contract deadlines and closing date as necessary to secure the required court approval for the sale, but in no event extending the closing date beyond December 31st, 2020. The purchase and sale agreement was approved at the February 18th, 2020 school board meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Mr. Friel, do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Melnazak, any discussion?
I'm just, we'll be very anxious for this to go through. I know both the buyer and seller are very anxious for this to be completed. So certainly hope somebody finally gives us a stamp to go do this. Oh, and this language means we don't have to do that again. We don't have to amend it again this year. I don't know what would happen if it drags on into next year. We would probably have to pass another amendment and hope they still want the property.
Right, we do anticipate getting, we've been tentatively scheduled for a court hearing on July 13.
Yeah, okay.
And then there's a 30-day appeal period. So we should hopefully get this moving sooner than later, and certainly well before the end of the school year.
Good, thank you.
Calendar year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for the update, Brian.
Sure.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. 12.15, approval of professional services and or maintenance agreements. Approval of professional services and or maintenance agreements as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Deal, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Booth, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 12.16, approval of parameter resolution. Approval of parameter resolution and form as presented to the school board authorizing incurrence of debt evidenced by general obligation bonds in one of the more series in amount not to exceed $64,960,000 for the purpose of refunding all or a portion of the OJR general obligation bond series of 2015 as presented. The approval of this resolution is being recommended by the Finance Committee from their June 9th, 2020 meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion moved.
Mr. Friel, and I'm going to use you as my second, Mr. Deal.
That's
Any
fine.
discussion?
Just thank the Finance Committee and Mrs. Crumrine, and I just want to say that there was a lot of work put in by the Finance Committee to try to look for solutions here, as this is a bit unusual as we're refinancing debt before the call date, but interest rates are very advantageous to be able to do so here, and we think it was in the best interest of the school district to move forward with this as quickly as possible.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, we're going to move on to item 13.1, public comment. Information, proposals, statements, or questions from individuals or delegations pertaining to any item. Speakers are to indicate their name and township of residence. Speakers will be limited to no more than 3 minutes. Please understand that this is not a time for dialogue with the board. Rather, the board will listen to all comments and consider them in future deliberations. And I think, Mr. San Francisco, were you going to present something on how to raise your hand or no?
I can just explain it again, Mrs.
Okay,
Prophet.
that's fine.
Again, for public comment, if you're using a computer, please hit participants and you'll see the raise hand feature. If you're using a mobile device, look for your 3 dots and you will see the raise hand feature there. So the first public comment is Erin Marcellus. Erin, you are unmuted.
Hi, Erin Marcellus, North Coventry Township. I first wanted to just speak about the tax increase. Obviously, no one wants to have their taxes increased, but typically in times of a negative financial impact on the community, it hits the school districts a couple years later. So I do appreciate the board making the decision to get ahead of it now so that we're not in trouble in 2 years and that we're choosing to do this over cutting teachers or programs. Secondly, it's no secret that the district is in a tough time right now. I do still feel proud to be a member of this district and have my children attending school here. I believe that they are still receiving an excellent education. I have faith in the school board members that are sitting before us, that they are ready to work together to move forward positively. I think we have an amazing staff. And I truly do believe that Dr. Lloyd is highly invested in our students and our school district, and that asking for her removal would really be detrimental to this school district. So I look forward to seeing how we can come out of this positively. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin.
Thank you, Mrs. Marcellus.
The next person is Ms. Colleen Blute. Mrs. Blute, you are on.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Colleen Blute, North Coventry Township. My first item of concern is the statement that was made at the meeting on Thursday, June 11th, 2020. It was stated that not everything goes in a personnel file. Well, according to policy 400 code 424, there's a list of items that should be placed in a personnel file when you're hired, and then a list of items that could or can be placed in that personnel file, which may include but are not limited to pay, your employment contract, any advanced degrees that you have, your attendance record, evaluation, and of course disciplinary actions, plus special awards, any warning letters, criticism or failure to follow district directives and policies, and any comments or internal memos regarding the action or actions of an employee. Yes, those items are suggestions. However, I will tell you that it's easier to pull together one file than to have to search for all those little papers that you put in another file from here, there, and everywhere when you may need it within minutes or half an hour or so, and you don't have enough time. And a little note that all professional staff have a right to view their personnel file by submitting a written request to the HR. In most school districts, that request is filled within 24 to 72 hours. The professional staff can then view the information with a representative present and request in writing that certain items be removed from the file. However, why would you ask to have something removed from your file when that file does not leave the district when you go to another district? Also, that policy 400 code 424, was last revised July 23rd, 2007. That is 13 years ago, making it long overdue for revision and update. My second comment is a thank you to the board members and the maintenance staff for placing an entry buzzer at the administration building. About 2 years ago, I had spoken to the board about safety and security at that building after I was sitting in the lobby waiting to see Ms. Crumrine and thinking, what if I needed to exit this building immediately? My choices were pretty limited. The reason I was thinking that was we had just had an ABI drill at my job. Thirdly, I would like to inform you that a page on your district website has a mistake that should have been corrected a year ago. If you'd like to see the error, I will gladly send it to you. I would also like clarification, Dr. Lloyd, on what was the date of that approval and the agenda item, because if I recall correctly, in May, there was a resending of items, coaches that are still not on the board agenda to be approved. So could you just check into that and get back to me? Thank you very much. Please stay safe and healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Blute.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Blue, please email me that website error so that we can get it corrected.
The next person is Jessica Marzella. And please make sure you state your name, your full name, and your township of residence. Ms. Marzella, you are unmuted.
Oh, hi, good evening again. Jessica Marzella from North Coventry Township. First and foremost, I would like to thank the board members and Dr. Lloyd for just what they have done in the amidst of the COVID-19, just trying to keep our children safe, and the fast action of the working virtually. And I have to say that my daughter really did very well during the last 3 months of school. So I commend you all and the IT department for putting that together so quickly. I do have a question that was commented from Dr. Lloyd about the mask wearing at school. If we decide to have a requirement for our child to wear a mask at school, and they are bullied at school for wearing a mask, trying to be safe, what kind of protocol do you have in place for that? Because I want my child to be safe. I don't want her to be bullied for trying to keep herself safe, and for keeping others safe. And I don't want to have anything to have any repercussions for her to feel that she is not safe at school if we decide to send her back. So please, Dr. Lloyd, if you could answer that for me, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Marzella.
Mrs. Prophet, I will circle back on any questions that parents have regarding the health plan once we get through all of the questions. So when we get to our next board discussion, I'll address any of those at that time.
Awesome, thank you.
The next participant is Joan Corson. Ms. Corson, you are unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. My comment is in regard to the transparency of the school board, and specifically Dr. Lloyd in regard to the demotion or resignation of the high school principal. I guess my comment is, if the principal has no prior history of mismanagement, was not reprimanded, lacking leadership, was not on a personal improvement plan, there were no official complaints lodged against him, and was generally well-liked and respected by both the faculty and the students, I wanted to know why he's being forced to either resign or be demoted. And if he did act inappropriately in any way, do you have any proof of this? If he was not an effective leader, do you have proof of this? I mean, hundreds, if not over 1,000 people have reached out to the school board on his behalf. And I feel that you as a school board are trusted in doing what's best for the interests of our students. Isn't it in their best interest to keep Mr. Napaver as the principal of the high school?
Mrs. Corson, can you just give your township of residence, please?
Yeah, I'm sorry, East Coventry Township.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Corson.
The next participant is Gary Walk. Mr. Walk, you are unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. My name is Gary Walk, East Coventry Township. First off, I want to thank Dr. Lloyd and the members of the team who put together the plan for reopening. I know that a lot of work had to go into that. Now, I do have to say I'm disappointed in the board and the district tonight, after tonight's meeting, to go forward with ESY and put our most vulnerable students at risk in the middle of, and make them our test subjects. I don't think that's appropriate. I don't think that's fair to the kids who, some of these guys can't even speak up for themselves. I just wish we had done more, and I'm disappointed that you guys have not tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walk.
Next person is Jen Wunderlich. Mrs. Wunderlich, you are unmuted.
Hi, thank you. My name is Jen Wunderlich from East Coventry Township. I spoke at the last meeting about my concerns over my daughter's sexual assaulter being allowed to stay in the same extracurricular activity with her. She was sexually assaulted on a 5-day out-of-school sponsored trip with a high school marching band in May of 2018. I had asked for his removal at that time. I was told no, that we had to wait until he was found guilty in a court of law, which took 564 days to complete, which allowed him in band for 2 full seasons. With around 70 times a season she has had to be with him for 2 seasons, that is 140 times for practices, shows, cavalcades, and other band activities in the last 2 years. My daughter deserves to be able to go to band and not have to relive what he did to her every time she sees him. Why is a sexual predator allowed to stay in an extracurricular activity? It makes no sense. I asked the board to look into the policies and use them. I also asked the board to look into Dr. Lloyd's reasoning for her firm stand on siding with the sexual predator and not the victim. In her last email, she states, "I want all of our students to know that they are safe when they come into our buildings and when they are in our community, that they will be treated with dignity and respect, and that their teachers, principals, and I will always stand alongside of them in their quest for a just world that recognizes the dignity of all people. If that is true, why side with the assaulter and not the victim? My daughter does not feel safe, and it is because of the decisions that were made by one person, and I ask again the board to investigate this matter. Almost all of my daughter's high school career has been made to not feel safe by the person who is there to protect her and her rights. I had 5 meetings, sent many emails, and made many phone calls being told that there was nothing that they could do until court was over. I initiated all of these meetings, emails, and phone calls. I only had 2 phone calls from anyone in the district. One of them from Mr. Napaver right before the last court hearing to tell me that the district was going to let the judge decide about our Disney trip. Then one at the beginning of February 2020 from Dr. Lloyd, and that was only after I emailed the school board looking for help. Why did I have to contact them about this situation? Why wasn't Dr. Lloyd concerned enough about a sexual assault that happened on a school-sponsored trip enough to contact me? Why was it only after I reached out to the board? Why are all of the sexual situations in the district being swept under the rug and or ignored? Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wunderlich.
I would just like to comment that there is an ongoing investigation into Ms. Wunderlich's complaint, and that matter is currently under investigation.
The next public comment is from Tina Grant. Ms. Grant, you are unmuted.
Okay, thank you. Tina Grant from West Vincent Township. Again, I just wanted to comment on the sexual assault and the predators in the school district that have been protected, just like this Ms. Wunderlich's comments have indicated, and wondering what the situation is with Mr. Rott, and also how much of this taxpayer-funded money has the taxpayer money to the school district has gone on to defend against good teachers like Jody McMahon. How much money does the district owe her, and what does the district intend to pay her? I just am wondering when I'm going to get any kind of comment, public comment for these questions. And I also wanted to thank the board for the safety plan for the students. It sounds like you're working very hard, and I appreciate that. And I wish you would work as hard in these sexual predator situations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Grant.
Okay, the next person is Heather McCreary. Make sure everybody does a township of residence and name, please.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. McCreary.
Okay. That's a little confusing. A thing comes up and says you can't unmute yourself. So just to say, I asked about this before in a meeting, and when the communications in board communications, but also in the beginning when we wrote emails in, I asked if maybe the emails, if there's a way to include them in attachments, because I feel that the paraphrasing of the board discussion at the board communication takes a lot out of the emails, because I think people know when they write the emails in that they hope that they're actually read at the board meetings. I understand there's personnel matters maybe that can't be mentioned, but I don't think that when they're sent in like that, people expect any privacy with them unless they ask to have them confidential. So the other thing is when you guys, we talked about the budget, and Mr. Friel said this whole process was like a living document and whatnot. So I'm concerned that there were items that were on a white piece of paper that said were being eliminated, specifically the gifted teacher and the band uniforms for $94,000. I saw a picture of band uniforms on a child, and they have waited for years to get those band uniforms. There was also a comment about cutting OM travel, which was, I think, maybe $8,000. And there were a couple of other items like that. I know I came in front of you guys, and while I was on the board for like 3 years, asking for AP capstone at a mere cost of $18,000. So when I understand that there's going to be a shifting, and I think it's kind of exciting because we're at a new point in education where we're going to be able to offer online. We'll finally be offered a hybrid. I really think you guys have to put the late start in. It makes sense with the buses. But if you are going to give a contract for a child to go to BVA instead of being in person, doesn't that save money that could then be allocated and moved back to keep the band uniforms and the other teachers and to move things around? So what I'm asking is that budget set in stone, or will you be looking at that and allowing input from the community? And we also talked about pay to play, and I'm not clear why all these things are being discarded in June. And there was a reference, I heard Mrs. Marcellus say this, that she actually made it sound like it was okay to cut programs. And I know she's a teacher and I'm not a teacher, but I don't believe in cutting programs for kids and not having any give and take on the other end. So I think this board is a duty to the students to go in and do the best they can so that nothing in our district is cut. And finally, I want to talk, if I'm not my 3 minutes yet, I want to talk real quick about the transparency and the board appointments. We've been through that twice in the past 4.5 years, and we were told in the past that everything about it had to be conducted in the sunshine, in front of the public. That means that when you're eliminating people for what reasons, when you're deciding the questions, it all has to be done in a public meeting. And I think that needs to be made clear when you are putting the advertisements out. And maybe new board members don't remember that, but everything
That's
is always
3
done in the
minutes.
sunshine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McCreary.
I can't get it full screen. I want to raise my hand again. I had a question.
Okay, we are at Dante DiNardo.
Yeah. Does it hide
So
something?
San Francisco, we have community with mics that are unmuted, and we're picking up on conversations that are taking place in their homes.
Okay. Dante, you are unmuted.
Hi, I'm Dante DiNardo, East Coventry. I'm a student at the high school. First off, I want to say that despite all the rumors going around about Mr. Napaver's resignation, I think that the community should respect his decision and just pray and hope that him and his family are safe and healthy. That being said, in response to Mr. Napaver's resignation, a petition was created, and we would like to share the results with the board after the meeting, whether that's through email or another way you guys want. Overwhelmingly, most students and parents want answers and also want you to know that there should be a complaint process in place, which includes oversight by the board and an outside third party. As a student body, we want the administration and board to make our physical and emotional safety a priority. This includes areas such as allegations of sexual assault, bullying, and coping with a student's suicide. When a student approaches a teacher with an allegation, that must be reported, and we expect the reporting to occur. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DiNardo. I just want to let you know there is an email address. It's called schoolboardmembers@ojrsd.net. It comes to all of us, and it's on the website too, so you can feel free to contact us that way.
The next person is Emily Wunderlich. And again, just reminding the public, if you can please say your name and your township of residence.
Hi, yes. Can you hear me?
Unmuted.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Emily Wunderlich, and I live in the East Coventry Township. I would like to bring to everyone's attention the lack of leadership from Dr. Lloyd. I was sexually assaulted by a peer on a school-sponsored band trip in 2018. The school received this information the day after this event happened to me, and all the administration did not want to follow their own protocols by calling the state police. They let me and my mom walk out of the school that day for a few hours and tried to hide the fact it was reported to them. To this day, my Salter is in the marching band with me, and no one is there to keep an eye on him. Every day that I see him in band, it is mental torture to me. He wasn't found guilty, he pleaded guilty in court. The school knows he admitted to his actions, yet the school superintendent, Dr. Lloyd, shut us down and broke so many policies. After a little over 2 years, I finally have the confidence to share my story all over social media, Mercury, and to Empower Women Group. I have received hundreds of supporters in this community. For example, I received 200 new followers within the first 24 hours of posting the terrible traumatic events that Dr. Lloyd and Slade have been ignoring. Over 50 teens from OJR have also messaged me and told me their own personal stories. Several girls were forced out of the school into full-time tech to silence their voices, such as myself. Many girls also reached out to me, seeking advice and giving more unexpected stories that Dr. Lloyd has covered up. I am here as a current student of OJR to not ask but demand answers and change for more teens like me. Thank you for your time, and I would also like to say thank you for finally listening to my story, because I am not going to be silenced anymore. My goal is to change the school's environment that Dr. Lloyd has personally been working to destroy. Thank you again for your time, and I really believe until she is out of this position, the school will be only getting worse. And one more thing I would also like to comment about something someone said before, is that the mission of do right thing at right time for right reason is a complete joke due to the fact that Dr. Lloyd only does all the wrong decisions for the worst reasons. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Wunderlich, and the board appreciates your strength in coming to speak with us.
The next person is Sergeant D. Sergeant D, you are on.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Dina Sargent. I'm in East Coventry Township. I have a child that attends O&J Roberts High School. And I have several concerns for the board that I'd like to bring to their attention. My first concern is, why is O&J Roberts High School allowing for students who have committed a sexual assault against another student allowed to continue their education in our high school and take part in all extracurricular activities like nothing has happened, which is extremely disappointing. If a student committed a sexual assault, which is a crime, they should be expelled instead of allowing his or her victim to see them every day. What does it take to expel a student? My second question is, at last month's meeting, the president documented our questions, but there were no answers in your notes following up from that meeting. It was all just questions. And my last question for the board is, why are our questions being written down instead of being addressed verbally during our meetings? OJR's board members is really the only district I've heard of that does not engage in a conversation with their attendees during the meeting. Why is that? We'd really like to have that open door communication back and forth, but when there's radio silence, that causes for more and more concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sargent.
The next person is Susan Smith. Ms. Smith, you are unmuted.
Hi, thank you for hearing me. My name is Susan Smith. I'm from West Vincent Township. It's taken a lot of time for me to actually think about what to say here with everything that's been going on here in this district. I've been in this district now for 10 years. First, I'd like to say, Emily Wunderlich, I am absolutely impressed with you and your bravery, and you brought me to tears. You keep going, girl. You keep speaking up. You've got people behind you. I'm here to speak for Mr. Napaver on his behalf. I've really gotten to know him the past 3 months. I have a graduate of 2020, and I worked very closely with him in the past 3 months. And everything he did for that class and these kids, and how much his philosophy has always been, it's all about the kids. And he had all the plans laid out, and he still has plans laid out for the rest of the summer that I hope are not ignored for this class that has been through so much and has lost so much. But I absolutely am completely impressed with him and his love for the children, and how he was not going to allow these kids to be forgotten. And he was going to make sure that their graduation ceremony that they worked 13 years for was not going to just have some pictures thrown across the internet like they were already doing before. This was something that all children work for. We have all experienced it ourselves, and they all deserved it as well. And he made sure that that happened. He was the only one who did. He was the only one who worked with us. He was the only one who supported us. Anybody else that I had seen in this leadership in this school district did nothing. So it is definitely, I am supporting him. I think he should remain as principal in this school. And I know that many students feel the same way, many faculty feel the same way, and so do many parents. And it's a tragedy what has been happening. And I do believe that we are owed an explanation as to why Dr. Lloyd felt that she could, in private, give him either a demotion or force him to resign, especially when there was no PIP in place for him. He has had no actions against him. I would like that explanation. We are owed that as constituents of this school. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith.
The next person is Eric Shanahan. Eric, you are unmuted.
Okay, my name is Eric Shanahan, and I am a resident of North Coventry, graduating senior this year. Give me one second. Okay, first and foremost, I want to personally thank Dr. Lloyd for her gratitude, dedication, and her unremitting support, and my brother and myself. Since her beginning years at North Coventry as a building principal, she has always been there for my brother and I. As I could go on and on as to all the wonderful things she helped me with, the greatest among them all was helping me shape myself for where I am today. A time where I once was disrespectful and disobedient towards teachers and other classmates has now turned to a time where I graduate high school with 3 National Honor Societies, the Presidential Achievement of Excellence Award, and graduating with numerous varsity letters. Dr. Lloyd, who to be completely frank, has changed me for the better by her gracious support and hard but fair rulings. I still remember the time that she held me back from a field trip because I was disobedient towards a teacher. I still think about that to this day. I'm still petty about that. Even to this day, even as I graduate, every time I see her, she always tells me how proud she is of me. She even reached out to me when my brother passed almost a year, when my mother passed almost a year ago from today. As impactful and heartfelt my memories are with Dr. Lloyd, I have similar memories with Mr. Ken DePaver. Mr. DePaver has been a great asset to the high school. To be honest, I think he has been the best thing to happen in the high school for a very long time. Even when he first became principal and he barely knew me, when he found out about my mother's passing, he reached out to my family, wrote countless emails to my father, and asked how he could help in any way. Mr. DePaver has demonstrated in numerous times of strong leadership skills, something that the high school has been in dire need of. O.N.J. Roberts is a great school, but we could become an excellent school and community. I promised in Dr. Lloyd in the running of our district, but I do ask for her to reconsider Mr. DePaver's role in O.N.J. Dr. Lloyd, as I hope you know how much I respect you, admire you, and believe in you, I also believe there's characteristics to be found in Mr. Ken DePaver. None of us expected the graduation we had, but none of us ever thought that it would be as great as it was. And I do strongly believe that is a part of Mr. Ken DePaver's role at O.N.J. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Hanahan.
Okay, the next person is Ms. Cynthia Zocali.
Hello?
Zocali, you are unmuted.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Cynthia Zocali, and I'm a resident of East Vincent, and I'm here to speak to you tonight about agenda item 12.6, but that's irrelevant because it's public comment anyway. Approval of the So built into the budget are the salaries of numerous overpaid administrators who should be removed from their jobs, starting with Dr. Lloyd. On behalf of the many residents of this district, I object to her being superintendent. We all have seen the community outrage about Dr. Lloyd forcing Ken DePaver out, and no matter what happens now, we all know the truth. It came from Lloyd, and I have never seen such an outpouring of support, particularly the change.org petition I started not even 48 hours ago. As of 4 p.m. today, it was viewed over 10,000 times and shared over 500, and there were 1,242 signatures. That is a major support. The amount of money that is being paid for an administrator who would do that to an employee and the students in the district is a complete waste of the community's tax dollars. She's wasting everyone's time hiring him less than 1 year and less than a year and a half ago, and obviously is not qualified to run this district. Now, after all this mess, if there's some kind of payout to make him go away and not talk, that money should be coming out of Lloyd's pay, not the district's. This is on top of the cover-up we saw the past 2 months was wrought. Why would a superintendent leave the administrators in place who obviously were involved, as they were in charge of wrought, who have now been called out by the people, specifically Markini and Carolyn Slade? They are all being paid under this budget. The fact that sexual abuse of students by a teachers union president is being covered up in this district is horrific. And I thereby demand the immediate resignation of Lloyd, Markini, and Slade. And I also demand that the board do their job and manage the administration rather than the other way around. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Zocali.
The next person is Mr. Cooper Chamberlain. Mr. Chamberlain, you are unmuted.
Actually, this is his mother, Jill. I'm from West Vincent Township. I'm a parent of a 2017 graduate of OJR, as well as the parent of my son, Cooper, a 2020 graduate. Our time at O&J started when our daughter entered the middle school in 7th grade. And from that point on, I have been nothing but a proud OJR mother, and we a proud OJR family. I have been an involved parent and absolutely loved our time over the years as part of this community. Most recently, my son's senior year, I was able to get to know Mr. DePaver. Although I had always known who the principal was in the past and had minor conversations here and there, I had never seen an administrator quite like Ken until he started a year and a half ago. What I mean by that is his level of engagement, his enthusiasm, and his absolute love of the students was apparent from the moment I met him. He knows every student's name and has worked tirelessly to create relationships with the student body. I was stunned when I learned of his resignation and know wholeheartedly that he does not want to leave this district. I am suggesting that there has to be some underlying issues that we are unaware of, and maybe the board that you are even unaware of, to precipitate his decision to resign. Because I care so much for OJR, as it has been our home for the last 9 years, I am humbly asking for you to do what is right, what's right by the students, the families, and the community at large. Being transparent, acting with the highest ethics, and focusing on the most important factors are where your mind, eyes, and actions should be, if you truly care about the Owen J. Roberts community. This untimely resignation in a very disparaging week for the district should be looked at as suspect. You now have community members far and wide that are questioning everything about this district and you, the people that run it. During such an unprecedented time historically, coming off the heels of a teacher who acted beyond inappropriately, a board member who spoke inappropriately, and now a beloved principal who is being asked to leave when everyone knows that he doesn't want to, should force you to investigate the entire situation and see if any of the spider webs have crossed from one place to another. And if they have, you should, regardless of the fallout and what it will look like, do what is right. You have the ability to make us feel safe and heard, and you have the ability to dig into uncomfortable conversations and find the truth. My family is praying for you to receive this request on our behalf, to appropriately investigate this matter, to not accept the resignation that we now know has been rescinded until it has been properly investigated. It is obvious that the entire OJR community loves and supports him to lengths that I have never seen before in my time in this district.
That's time.
Thank you, Mrs. Chamberlain. Paul, I'm noticing we lost Kathy.
Oh, Kathy DeMarino's here.
Is she?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I can't see her. Thank you.
The next person is Ms. Beth McDonald.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi there. I wasn't 100% sure what to focus on this evening because it seems like there's so much, to be honest with you. I do want to echo some of the previous statements from other people about Emily and her being so brave to come forward. And I'll circle back to the long history of what appears to be sexual abuse and misconduct that appears to be covered up at the school later. I want to start by asking why there just doesn't seem to be an open communication. I know last time I attended the meeting, there was a lot of statements made and questions asked, as the previous person who spoke mentioned, and nothing was ever addressed. We're back in the same spot again. When Carol Miner ended up resigning, thankfully, after making his comments, there was no public statement from the board. There was a statement from Dr. Lloyd, and I appreciate that. I actually reached out to Lloyd and did speak to her about it, but the board made no statement whatsoever. His own company made a statement, but I don't understand why you as a board would not. You didn't even make a statement when you decided to, elect a new president and vice president. So I don't understand why there just seems to be a lack of open communication. And in the end, I have this overwhelming fear with my son entering 9th grade. And it's really unfortunate I feel this way, being this proud OJR mom. And I find myself very, very upset and worried over the constant stories that I'm hearing over girls being abused, kids being bullied, multiple teachers, 4 or 5 in 4 years who've been fired for sexual abuse. If there is in fact oversight, which was mentioned in the last meeting, and there is in fact a chain of command, and there's people that are going to, then who was it that was told? Was it the now director of pupils who was promoted, who used to be the high school principal at the time? Considering that Ken has only been there 18 months, were things reported to Ken? Who are things reported to, and how do we find out? I don't understand who to go to for answers in the school district. When I reach out, I get a lot of, I can't discuss personnel issues. I can't discuss ongoing investigations. I called the DA's office and they specifically mentioned that, excuse if I'm mispronouncing his name, Marcini, because I'm new to the high school, but they specifically said that he has been named by multiple witnesses. And I'm very concerned that he still is in a position of power at OJR. I don't know everyone who's involved, but I'd like to ask you directly. Have anybody on this call who's in a position of power had sexual complaints from teachers brought to them? And what was their response? Did anyone who's a part of this call know about Mr. Roth before he was arrested, prior to this one instance? Because from my understanding, he has a long history. I want to know what's going to be implemented and who's going to be in charge of that, because I'm quite frankly quite concerned.
That's time.
Thank you, Mrs. McDonald. I do want to say the board did make a statement at the beginning of the meeting about Mr. Carminer's resignation.
The next person is Claire Hampton. Ms. Hampton, you are unmuted.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Claire Hampton, East Coventry. First, I'd like to start by thanking the ASL interpreters and everyone who was involved in arranging for them to be on this meeting. I'd also like to echo the strength of Emily. Thank you so much for speaking at this meeting. We all really appreciate you coming to public comment. It's so important for everyone commenting. Our attendance is so high at this meeting, and that's really important for the board to be in here. My personal comment is about the plan for our sexual education in the elementary schools. I am starting good touch and bad touch education before second grade. Kindergarten administrators are not immune to sexual assault. It's never too early to teach appropriate adult and minor relationships and peer relationships to students.
I'm sorry, Ms. Hampton, your comments cut out a little bit. I think I caught most of what you were saying, but if you want to send us an email too, that would be really helpful. I think I got most of what you're saying, but thank you.
Next participant is Erin Marcellus. They dropped off right now, so we're going to move down to Ashley. Ashley, you are unmuted. Please give your name and township of residence, please.
I am Ashley Mitchell, and I am in South Coventry Township. I just want to start off by saying I'm not talking to criticize the school board or any one part of it. I think that our school and the people that go to our school need to know what's behind the resignation of Mr. Nepaver. He was one of the only principals I truly connected with, and us as students deserve to know the full reason behind this instead of going full throttle on the school board and Susan Lloyd. It seems that throughout many students' years of high school, there hasn't really been many opportunities for us to speak up in anything. This is like one of the first times we've ever been allowed to talk on something. And I feel like you guys, being the school board and ONJ, don't you think that we should have a say in what goes on and who should be resigned? Because clearly there's a lot of obviously criticism towards your guys' decision to make Mr. Paver resign. And even saying this, I am in truly disbelief that I will even be heard. Mr. Paver should be able to discuss why he was put in the position to be resigned or demoted, because we deserve to know why. Otherwise, you give us no reason to act without reason. As a junior, I've been going to the high school for 3 years, and not once have I felt the power to have any say in what goes on in the school. In my opinion, the way the school board handling things is coming off very shady, causing people to not trust the school board's intentions. I think that justice should come from Mr. Nepaver, or the school board would definitely crumble. And Mr. Nepaver was truly an amazing man and greeted each and every student in the hallway with a smile. Do you know how that smile could make someone feel? It's the little things that matter. And in no pillory to Susan Lloyd or any other people in the school board, in the higher staff or anything in ONJ have made students feel the way they should, but Mr. Nepaver did. And I think that he really needs justice for him. And I really want to say, after writing that whole email, everyone got the same response. And I don't really think that's cool. So that's all I have to say. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. I do want to say we do appreciate student feedback. We got a lot of student feedback. And yeah, obviously you can come to a board meeting, you can email us. We're always willing to listen. Thank you.
Next person is Paul O'Sullivan. Paul, you are unmuted. Mr. O'Sullivan.
Hello.
Yes, you are unmuted.
Oh, thank you.
Name and township of residence, please.
Paul O'Sullivan, West Vincent Township. I just have to say, Emily, I was like so proud of you. I think it's amazing. I haven't heard your story before, but I mean, I'm just almost in tears listening to this, and I can't believe anything I heard, and I'm just so disappointed that that has had happened to you. I've got a daughter myself, and I just can't believe it. That's just disgraceful. It's disgusting. I do know that like there's this mandatory reporting, duty to report for like teachers, administrators, lawyers in the school district. I think they owe us every report that they've had. Was that duty to report followed? Did they report this to the PA Department of Education, which I believe they have to? So I think, you know, I'm not sure who said it, that like other questions haven't been answered in the past. You can't just like let us talk and ask these questions and not respond. You know, we need to know, you need to be transparent with the parents. If reports are coming in of sexual abuse, are they getting reported? Are the administrators doing their job and reporting those? And if there's not, it says in the school policy that there will be repercussions. You know, we can't be sending our kids into school if you're just ignoring these reports of sexual abuse, not doing your job, which is to report it. So, you know, maybe the attorney for the school, Mr. Subers, can document what they should be doing. Is it being followed? But you know, we as parents need to know what's been reported. Has the administration done their job in reporting it and followed up on that? And I think it's owed to all the parents that they do answer these questions. I can understand you can't answer now. There's lots of parents, you got 3 minutes, but in the follow-up notes, like all questions should be answered by the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Sullivan.
Next person is Cheryl Lasky. Ms. Lasky, you are unmuted. Oh. Ms. Lasky, yes, Ms. Lasky, you are unmuted.
Okay. I am here on behalf of Mr. Napaver and the class of 2020. I think he was wrongly forced to resign or be demoted by Susan Lloyd. There was no explanation as to why he is being forced to resign. If it wasn't for him, the class of 2020 would not have had any type of graduation at all, virtual or anything. If the students are going back to school next year and not have to wear masks in August, then why can't the seniors have a graduation? I'm sure all of you have had graduations. Why should they miss out on that opportunity? I think there's a lot of issues with the school district and the community. I've been here over 20 years. And we shouldn't have to say sorry to Emily Wunderlich, because that should never have happened if the superintendent was doing her job correctly.
Ms. Lasky, can we just have your township of residence, please?
East Coventry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lasky.
The next person is Kay Morrow. Kay Morrow, you are unmuted.
Hi there. My name is Kelly Morrow, and I am from East Coventry. I'm sitting here with two of my rising ninth graders who are both band members. My daughter wants to follow music in her life, and here she is wondering if that's a safe place for her to be. She's wondering if she can go to band and
feel safe with the community she's in. I don't know how any of you can listen to Emily's story and not be moved to tears. My 14-year-old, that's how old my daughter is. To think of something happening to her and her have to go to school every day and not feel safe. I myself am a preschool teacher. I am a mandated reporter. I know the rules to follow to report people. If they cannot feel safe around their band members, let alone the teachers, what are we doing in our community? Who can my child go to if she does not feel safe? If she knows that teachers and the superintendent are not following the rules of mandated reporter, who can they go to know that they are free, that they are protected, that they are loved, that their lives are important? I'm just very upset as a mom. I have 4 children in this district, and I know how good our community is, and 98% of the teachers, at least, love our kids and want the best for them, but we need to be following procedures and making our kids feel safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Morrow.
The next person is Erin Marcellus. You are unmuted.
Hi, Erin Marcellus, North Coventry Township. I was misquoted earlier. I can't remember who said it, but that's not important. I did not say that I was in favor of cutting any teachers or programs. I, in fact, said the opposite, that I was not in favor of that. So I just wanted to clear that up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Marcellus.
The next person is Ryan. Ryan, please state your name and township of residence, please. You are unmuted.
Hi, my name is Ryan Manival. I am from East Vincent Township, and I have 2 younger sisters. One is going to be in 9th grade this year coming up, and one's going to be in 4th grade. I don't understand how we can have a teacher that was trusted by so many students just, get away with everything that he did. And for so long with people knowing about it. I am currently, angry. Very angry, because if one of my sisters came home one day and said they were touched inappropriately or anything else relating to sexual assault, I don't understand how angry I could become from that. And the fact that the school board and the teachers that allegedly knew about this did absolutely nothing is horrific. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting that this just happened. This just went on. And especially the situation with Emily too. I feel for her, and I definitely support her coming out and telling her story. But the fact that this happened and nothing was really done about it, it's just disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And I think Lloyd should be gone and Marquini should be gone at least. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manival.
The next person, I apologize for pronouncing your last name, Louise Stenderwitz. You are unmuted.
Hi, my name is Louise Stenderowitz, and I'm a resident of North Coventry. And I would just like to applaud all the students and community members who are here speaking for a change in our district. After I received the email stating that Mr. DePaver's resignation was removed from the agenda, I was hoping that this board did the right thing and made a step forward to mend the community by keeping Mr. DePaver as the high school principal and nothing less. Your motto has always been do the right thing at the right time for the right reasons. Now is the right time to keep Mr. DePaver as the high school principal. He is an outstanding individual who has always put the students and their interests first. And our community has such respect for this man as an outsider coming in to our district. I've worked with him for the last 18 months on several things, and I couldn't say anything less of what a great person he is. Thank you, and I'll continue to listen.
Thank you, Ms. Senderowitz. I apologize if I'm saying that incorrectly.
The next person is Joan Corson. Ms. Corson, you are unmuted.
That's okay. I already spoke earlier. I'll take my hand down.
Okay. The next person is Kristen Ackerman. Ms. Ackerman, you are unmuted.
Hi, this is Kristen Ackerman. I'm in North Coventry Township. I have a daughter in the high school band. I'm completely devastated, obviously, as everyone else is, by the story that Emily so bravely shared. I'm struggling to understand a few things. Number one is if you don't maintain a certain grade point average, you can get kicked out of band. So if you're failing 2 classes, you can be asked to leave an extracurricular activity. So I'm struggling to understand how, if you're convicted of a sexual assault of another band student, how you are able to remain. As a parent, I have a question. Do we have a right to know that our children are in an activity with a child who's convicted of a sexual assault? I would also like to know if the student handbook is going to be revised with more information on the punishment for sexual harassment and sexual assault from peer-to-peer situations, because currently it's about a paragraph where there's like 4.5 pages on drug and alcohol. If you're caught with drugs, alcohol, it's very clear what the consequences are. If you look at the handbook on peer-to-peer sexual harassment and sexual assault, it's very, very vague. And I feel like that needs to be revisited. And my last question / comment is, I'm hoping that the third-party investigation is going to look into the policies around peer-to-peer sexual harassment, reporting, punishment, consequences, and education, making sure that these kids understand that this is not okay, and we need to start this probably, in my opinion, in the middle school, having more mature conversations. And clearly there's so many stories that have been shared in the past month. It's disturbing. It's not just Emily's story, and it's very scary as a parent of a high school girl. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ackerman.
The next person is Andrea Monvale.
Okay.
You
Hello?
You are unmuted.
Okay, thank you. My name is Andrea Manival, and I'm in East Vincent Township. Before I say anything, I want to commend Emily on coming out and sharing her story. That was one of the bravest things I've ever heard in my life, and I wish more women and men that have been sexually assaulted, would do that. When I was assaulted in high school, back in the 80s, nothing was done. We are in 2020, people. We need to get with the program and save these students from suffering and having to see their attackers in person every day. That is absolutely horrifying to me. And the second point is, you don't have to take the mandated reporter training to be a mandated reporter. You see something, it's anonymous. You say something. You, as a human being, you know somebody's being assaulted, you need to report that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Manival.
The next person is Hisham Osman. You are unmuted.
Thank you. My name is Hisham Osman. I'm from West Vincent Township. First thing I'd like to say is earlier when this board was elected, you promised to be a transparent board with the community, to have our deliberations transparent and your discussions transparent. I would like to say one of the things out of this COVID-19 crisis is the use of Zoom and the use of technology, enabling more community participation in our board meetings and in our committee meetings. So I would like to request, as we go back to face-to-face meetings, you still enable the ability of technology to allow the full community to express their thoughts and comments and not limit to only in-person meetings as we get into the summer and into the fall. I think you owe this to us as a community to allow full engagement. And while I understand some of these conversations can be difficult, as elected members and representatives of our community for our district, you owe it to us to allow for full participation and not just for in-person attendance. Secondly, as it regards to the budget, as far as I know, it's been about 5 years now in a row where Orange, our school district, has had tax increases. Some years it has been above the ACT index. This year you're within the index. Does the district have a long-term plan to reduce tax increases in the future? For many of our families, this is not sustainable year-over-year increases. And so please, I would request that the district look at all actions in order to get our budget and taxes under control. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Osmond.
The next person is Cody Wilkinson. You are unmuted.
Hi, my name is Cody Wilkinson, and I'm from the West Vincent Township. I'm a 2018 alum from Owen J. Roberts. I just have one thing to say. Dr. Susan Lloyd has overseen and condoned this behavior for far too long, and I personally believe her resignation is due. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkinson, sorry.
The next person is Nate. Nate, please give your full name and your township of residence, please. You are unmuted.
Hey, my name is Nate Ackerman, and I'm a senior and resident of East Coventry Township. With the recent case involving Mr. Rott, as well as other sexual assault allegations, such as those involving Emily Wunderlich and Ms. Bonkoski, it seems that sexual crimes are far too common in the school district. It makes me wonder how many more children are affected by sexual predators still at the school. In addition, I'm disgusted by the school's lack of action regarding punishing the student who sexually assaulted Emily Wunderlich. Earlier this meeting, the school board mentioned that parents may request online learning this coming school year, and I would suggest placing the sexual predator on the list of students who will be learning online. Why should a convicted sexual predator be allowed to participate in high school and band, as well as remain anonymous? Finally, I'll ask the school board, does anyone agree with Dr. Lloyd's action regarding the forced resignation of Napaver, or was this her decision alone? That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Ackerman.
The next person is Jen Wunderlich. You are unmuted.
Hi, yes, I'm sorry. I wanted to speak again. I wanted to thank the board for letting everyone be able to join the meeting, even though it's not in the school building. I think doing that helped my daughter be able to share her story rather than stand up in front of everyone. And I wanted to thank all of the people who are supporting her. It took her a very long time to be able to speak about what had happened to her, and to be able to do it publicly now with her name attached to it. It's amazing progress for her. And I wanted to thank everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wunderlich.
The next person is Lauren McLaughlin. Ms. McLaughlin, you are unmuted.
Hi, my name is Lauren McLaughlin, and I'm from East Vincent Township. I would first like to say I'm a rising senior, and I always have thought very highly of my school, the staff that work at Owen J. Roberts, and the community that I live in. However, like everyone else at this meeting, I'm very concerned about recent controversy, especially regarding Mr. Rott and his sexual abuse of a student. How could this school cover up reports of his wrongdoings for so long and not do anything about this situation? And how many other students has this affected that we do not even know of? I'm upset about the situation regarding Emily Wunderlich as well, and I cannot believe that her abuser would be allowed in the band for so long.
It is horrible what she has gone through, and the board and superintendent must do more to prevent sexual abuse in our school. It is very upsetting that in my 3 years of being at the high school, there have been 2 teachers found guilty of sexual abuse. More needs to be done from the leaders in this district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McLaughlin.
The next person is Alyssa C. Alyssa C., please give your name and township of residence, please.
Can you hear me?
You are unmuted, yes.
Excellent. Hi, my name's Alyssa Christoforou. I'm the mother, and I'm in West Vincent Township. I'm the mother of a 2020 graduate and an incoming freshman. And I wanted to reach out because I often follow what's happening in the district. We've been a part of the district for many years. And I noticed that we had at a maximum 630 people on the call tonight. And so I want to suggest that we find a better way to communicate with people, because obviously a lot of people in the community are incredibly upset. And I'm hoping that that isn't falling on deaf ears. I'm hearing from a lot of people that there have been multiple sexual assault complaints over the years, especially in years past, from all the way back to 10 years ago up to probably 2 years ago, that the community doesn't even know about. And I think that we need a better way of communicating to the people like myself who have kids going to the school who are now feeling uncomfortable with how it's being handled, and it feels like things are being swept under the rug. Secondly, I wanted to reach out because we are really, really disappointed to hear that Mr. Napaver was given 2 options, either resign or be demoted. My son is, like I said, a 2020 graduate, and we were blown away by the effort that he made to try to help honor these kids who have worked for 13 years. And what the result was is these kids felt honored and they felt supported by the school. And that was just the culmination. What led up to that and the love that you're seeing now when you're having 630 motivated people who are sitting here for almost 3 hours this evening, and we're all busy and we're sitting here wanting to hear answers. Mr. Napaver wasn't just a principal, he was a principal that made an effort to know every single student. And I say that because I've talked to people in track, I've talked to people in football, I've talked to people in soccer, I've talked to people in art, I've talked to people in band, and he made an effort to know these kids' names. My son has never felt like he feels about Mr. Napaver up until now, but he said Mr. Napaver knew his name, would always say hello, how are you doing? And it just made the school a more positive place. I didn't prepare comments for tonight, and I wasn't sure that I was even going to say anything, but I have to say, Emily Wunderlich, you motivated me to speak up this evening. I am heartbroken for what has happened to you. I am in awe of your strength this evening to speak up. And I feel like the community, we are all standing behind you. I know myself and my family, we are behind you 100%. What happened, you shouldn't have happened to you, and you deserve answers. But going back to my original comments, I think we need a better way to communicate. I think when you have 630 upset people on a call like this, is that time?
It is time.
Okay, I just think we need a better way to communicate. This is an engaged community, and we need answers, and not just to be able to make comments. We need to hear some answers.
Thank you, Ms. Christoforou.
The next person is Emily Wunderlich. Emily, you are unmuted.
Hi, it's Emily Wunderlich from East Coventry Township again. I just wanted to say thank you so much for everyone's support. You have no idea how much it means to me and my family. I went outside to see my mom's reaction after me and my mom both were done reading. And I swear she was dancing on cloud 9, because going from 2 years with no support from the district at all and no one reaching out to us is such a big change for me and my mom to see all the support you guys are giving to us. I just wanted to bring up one idea I had. I really do think having a professional girl empowerment counselor or someone to have a club for crime victims to come together in our school district to come talk to each other, because you have no idea how many girls have messaged me within the 48 hours of me announcing my story. It really is ridiculous how many people have gone through almost the same exact things as me. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Wunderlich.
Next person is Ashley. Ashley, please give your entire name and township of residence, please. You are unmuted.
Hi, this is Ashley Mitchell again from South Coventry Township. I just thought I needed to speak again as I was listening to it about Emily, and I think I need to speak again. And I want to say how many more people need to be sexually assaulted and abused for them to be heard. This has happened many times with Mr. Giannoni in the middle school, Mrs. Bonkoski, and Mr. Rott. How many more times does this need to happen before there is change seen in the district? And I want to thank you, Emily, for coming out with your story, because it seemed like you have helped so many people. And I think that you're an amazing person, and I really hope that you get the justice that you deserve. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell.
Next person is Ryan. Ryan, please give your entire name and township of residence. You are unmuted.
Hi, my name is Ryan Manival. I'm from East Coventry, and I'm back. So, again, I'm a senior. I was a senior. I graduated this year. And so I obviously have I've had a couple teachers, I've had a teacher that was arrested and fired, and that's Mrs. Bonkoski. And it's just crazy to me to think that for the entire year, this was going on. And we had absolutely no idea. But when she began to get investigated, our grades started to slip. I ended the year with like a 78 or something stupid, even though I was doing good all year. But I would assume that if we were in school and this has happened to Rott and there was an investigation, that still would have happened. And maybe if we hadn't had all this COVID-19 stuff, maybe this wouldn't have gone the same way and action wouldn't have been taken like it was and like it wasn't with Bonkoski. Nothing changed. Absolutely nothing seemed to change. I just think that if you guys as a school board would devote more of your resources towards helping those in need and helping those that are being sexually abused, maybe you could actually make some change instead of just being your status quo and having all of this scandal surrounding you. You could have avoided all of this if you would have just screened the teachers better. The fact that we have had 3 teachers in the past 4 or 5 years get fired for sexual assault allegations and been arrested is just how? How does that happen? In one school, actually 2 schools, since there was middle school and high school, but it doesn't matter, it's on the same campus. And this could be happening at any one of the 7 schools, and obviously nothing is being done. So again, if you would devote more of your resources towards actually helping kids that are in crisis, maybe you can make some change. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Manival.
Next, we have Riley. Riley, please take your entire name and township of residence, please. Riley, you are unmuted.
Thank you. Actually, my name is Robin Durbin. I'm a parent of 3 children in the district, and I live in East Coventry. I just have some 2 quick questions that I would like to be answered regarding online learning. I would really like to know what the plan is for consistency of instruction. And my reason for asking that question with the online component is I'm unsure what I want my children to do in the fall. Yet I know we were thrown into this situation, nobody had planned for it, and everybody did the absolute best that they could given the circumstances. However, in speaking with other parents, just in my neighborhood alone, with children of the same age of mine, each of us had a different story as far as what kind of instruction their child received, how much homework they were given, how much live FaceTime they were given with their teachers. Even the consistency or lack thereof between my two children at the elementary level. My one child had 2 live chats with her teacher each week, and my other child had 2 the entire time. I understand that there are many other factors that are taken into consideration, like home life, but as a teacher myself in another district with 3 children, I was able to, make that balance and figure those things out. The next thing regarding going back to school in the fall, I would like to understand the rationale behind masks not being required for students, yet face shields are required for the staff. And lastly, as a parent of an incoming freshman, I now have way more concerns regarding safety and the ability to speak up regarding any issue that ever may come up than I have ever had before in all of the years living in this district. I, like many, many others, would like to have the answers to these many questions answered. And I really do just feel at this point that changes need to be made because students are of our utmost importance and they need to feel safe and secure. And if they don't feel safe and secure in our schools, then what are we doing? So thank you for listening to my comments and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Durbin.
The next person is Tracy Frederick. You are unmuted.
Yes, hello, Tracy Frederick from West Vincent. First of all, I want to thank Emily, and I've known Emily for several years now. Amazing, amazing that you are doing this, and I cannot thank you enough. You know how much our family supports you. I think the girl empowerment, some kind of group is an excellent, excellent idea. I would love to be involved with that. I think peer-to-peer is, obviously there's a teacher issue. We all know that, but peer-to-peer I think is extremely important as well, because I can tell you there is a lot of predatory behavior at the high school. And I mean boys on girls. When those freshman girls walk through that door, there are some students that are just kind of waiting, and they're looking for the girls that maybe are not real comfortable with themselves, have low self-esteem, possibly some learning issues, and they pounce. We've had issues. I do not feel my daughter is safe at O&J. I've been vocal about that, probably not returning next year due to a student that is harassing her. He was physical with her. He threatened my entire family, and it's just been very tough. So she's really suffered a lot, and we are kind of moving forward with some things, but probably, unfortunately, she may not be able to come back next year because with Mr. Nepaver also, when she heard about that, she just said, oh my gosh, that and the news of somebody else leaving, she just was like, I don't feel safe. The other issue that I have is for special education for ESY this summer, to put our most vulnerable students and kind of use them to kind of see how it goes, I think is unacceptable. My son has an IEP. At his IEP meeting, we were told virtual. That is what we planned on. 2 weeks to get this together. No, I have my mother-in-law, 95 years old. She lives with us. We have been so careful to put him on a bus or to have him go for ESY this summer is just not acceptable. So he will be doing virtual. But the other gentleman who was on, I fully agree with you. And unfortunately, we're not the majority, right? We're the minority, special ed students with IEPs. So I feel very strongly about it. I know, right now with the, where I work with students, we are not putting them out into, the community. So possibly a pilot, I could see that. Maybe ask, would you like your students?
That's time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Frederick.
The next person is Catherine Freer. You are unmuted.
Hi, this is Catherine Flieger from South Coventry. I know there's a lot of tension within this meeting this evening, but I just wanted to speak out and thank the board and Dr. Lloyd for all of your hard work during all of the online. In my house, it went seamlessly, and all of your hard work could definitely be shown. And I just wanted to say I appreciate you all, and I thank you all very, very much. Keep doing what you're doing, and great job.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Flager.
Next person is Michelle. Michelle, please give your full name and township of residence, please.
You hear me?
You are unmuted.
All right, perfect. My name is Michelle Medovich. I'm from West Vincent Township. And first and foremost, I want to say to Emily, just like all of the other parents and everyone on this call, how proud we are of your bravery. And we do support you 100%. I just think it's that you being able to speak up and your mother's support and everyone's support is just so important. And you should have the support of the school board and the district. My initial reason for speaking tonight and joining the school board was to talk about and support Ken DePaver. I would like to say that I have been a part of this district for over 12 years and I have 6 years remaining. And as a part of the school district, I have 2 2020 graduates, and Mr. Ken DePaver did an excellent job going above and beyond to be able to provide our children with a graduation that they can remember. And so I posted something on Facebook, which I don't do very often at all, really talking about how Owen J. Roberts and Mr. DePaver did such an excellent job. And I was dumbfounded and so surprised to get a phone call, a personal phone call from Mr. DePaver thanking me and reaching out. And I've never had that before. And I thought, wow, what an impact he's not only made on my children and on the other children in the district, but the parents, but to take the time to call me and thank me for that support. And it just came from my heart. And I just really couldn't believe it. And from that moment on, as much as I appreciated him before, I thought, I am so happy that my son will have him as a principal moving forward. And so tonight I'm here on his behalf. I'm not sure what the circumstances were, but I do ask for the transparency. And I also want to say there were over 600 people that joined this meeting tonight. And it's the voice of the people that's powerful, but what I really think about, it's the voice of the children that is empowering. They need a voice. And when I talk to my children, Ken DePaver was a voice for them. There are so many issues that need to be handled with this school district. And for the next 6 years, as I am a part of it, I truly hope that you will stand up, this board will stand up, listen to the people, listen to the children, and do what's right. So thank you very much for the time. Thank you very much for the consideration. And I do thank Mr. DePaver for all that he's done and for everyone on this call for speaking up. Thank you.
I apologize. I did not catch your last name. There was someone, I'm sitting at the middle school and there was someone doing donuts. So I didn't catch your last name, but I wanted to thank you for your comment.
It's Medovich.
Medovich. Okay. Thank you.
Cody Wilkinson.
Yeah, Mom.
Hello. I previously spoke earlier, and truthfully, I could continue. However, I would just like it to be heard across our community that how the class of 2020 is currently feeling about their principal is nearly exact to how the class of 2018 and further alumni felt about the entire Miss McMahon situation. And because of that, this has been a reoccurring pattern that I believe deserves to be addressed across our community, because it does impact how our students are being taught when they're like when their academics are being affected and compromised, that's when this needs to be addressed. And I don't believe that the board has addressed it nearly enough. That is all I'm going to say. Thank you again, and I hope you all enjoy your evenings.
Thank you, Ms. Wilkinson.
The next person is Stacy. Stacy, please give us your full name and township of residence. You are unmuted.
Thank you. Actually, this is Dave Mansfield, North Coventry Township. Just one thing I'd like to say, and then one question. I've been a mandated reporter for in excess of 20 years in various capacities. And to be honest, it's not that hard. It's not rocket science. There's a phone number, you call it, it's done, it's on the record. And that's how it works. It's pretty simple. And I've had to make, sadly, a number of calls based on, thankfully, not grievances from within the organizations I was working with at the time, but family abuse that was uncovered during my time with the students or with the children. It just needs to be done. And I'm wondering, how is your mandated reporter training handled? I've had it handled by outside sources, which are great, and I've taken really lousy online mandated reporter training that was more or less useless, pardon me. So I'd like to know how mandated reporter training is handled, because it's really not that difficult. And I would also like to, for your own benefit, please communicate more clearly and with adults in mind when you send emails and public posts. These posts that say we're all saddened and shocked by recent events that will continue to remain unnamed, even when everybody knows exactly what you're talking about. We shouldn't have to guess. We should have the forthrightness to be able to say, you've seen this incident about this person, this is what's happened, this is what we're legally not allowed to say, and here's everything else. But when we continue to get messages that say, sad and shocked and unnamed events, and it's already in the media and it's already on law enforcement pages at times, when we're still getting these sidestepped, roundabout communications that really patronize us. Please say everything you possibly can say and let us know what you can't say and why. Thank you.
The next person is Casey Drucker. You are unmuted.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for tonight. I just want to say, like everybody else, I wanted to thank Emily so very much for her bravery. I know that was probably really, really scary to come out and speak like that. It was just very, very brave. And also your mom, Michelle, I'm just so glad that you are hopefully going to finally be heard. You know, as a mom, I have 4 kids. One has graduated 2 years ago. I have 3 now in the high school, 2 daughters, and my son will be in 9th grade. And, you know, when we moved here over 10 years ago, I was so very proud to say my kids are going to be in the Owen J. Roberts School District. It was just, that was the entire reason why we moved here. And as far away it was, and people were like, where are you moving to? It seems like in the middle of nowhere. But you know what? I was so very, very proud to send my kids off to school, and they loved their elementary school and even the middle school. My son had a great experience. But now this high school, I feel actually sick to my stomach sending my 2 daughters now, my son, off to school where I don't know if they're going to be safe, or if something does happen, they're going to be scared to speak up. But hopefully now that they feel like they have an open dialogue. And I'm also just want to say I'm so very proud of all the other students speaking out, and hopefully now this will open up a dialogue for them to feel safe. I'm so proud of my daughter's friends that spoke tonight. It's just very, very brave of all of you. And I'm all shaken up right now just thinking about it. And that's really all. I hope things can change for the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Core, and I apologize, I didn't get to thank Mr. Mansfield either.
The next person is Nat. Nat, please give your full name, township residence, please. You are unmuted.
Hi, I'm Natalie Peedy, and I'm in North Coventry Township. And I just wanted to bring up the Rott situation again, because my sister always warned me about her, and she graduated in 2014, and she had an incident with him in 2013, and she went to, everyone, the principal, the vice principal, and they just told her that she read it the wrong way and it was brushed under the rug. and there was multiple other people that year that reported him, and it just shocks me that after at least 7 years of him being reported that no one said anything, and they proceeded to let him in the school, and it just blows my mind. That's all.
Thank you, Mrs. I believe it was Petey.
It was Natalie.
Natalie.
This is Prophet. That is the end of public comment.
Okay. I just want to thank everyone for their comments. Your concern for our district is very apparent, and your concern for our success as a parent and our student safety. And we share that, and we appreciate that. I do want to comment that we can't speak on personnel matters, but I do want to assure you that we will be taking appropriate action with our third-party consultation. All right, I'm going to move on to item 14.1, board discussion and follow-up. Do we have any discussion?
Leslie, do you suppose we could have Brian Subers give an explanation of why it's very important for boards not to speak on personnel matters?
Absolutely.
And ongoing investigations?
Sure. I mean, with respect to Mr. DePaver in particular, now that matter, in all likelihood, unless it's resolved, would be subject to a hearing before the Board of School Directors, at which time the board would have to act as impartial fact finders and make a determination as to the appropriate action to be taken. In addition, personnel matters are generally held to be confidential. So there's multiple reasons that, generally personnel matters are confidential matters. And then secondly, to the extent that there would be a demotion or a termination, those matters are subject to hearings before the board, and the boards generally have to remain impartial pending the matters being directly brought to the board.
Thank you.
Any other discussion or follow-up?
Mrs. Prophet, just a suggestion that we maintain committee structures as they are until we name our new board director following the interviews and all that, just because we'll certainly want that person to take their role on any of the committees. I think it'd be premature to kind of rearrange the organization unless you or others think otherwise.
Oh, that makes sense.
No, I think it makes sense too.
Agreed.
Yeah, I would let them stand as is.
I have two things. First, I feel like because we do talk about so much and we have procedural ways that we have to talk about it, that sometimes it's hard necessarily to follow. And just hearing everybody's passion tonight, every one of us are also parents of students in this district or have been parents of students in the district. And we share concerns, or else we wouldn't be doing this. This is something we take very seriously. And those of us who are new did say and have been talking about transparency, which is something we're trying very, very hard to do. As a matter of fact, we've been holding workshops in public, which is not something that we have to do. There are very specific things that you cannot speak about for the protection of those individuals that are involved, not just what might appear as to be protection of the district. And we do have to stay impartial, and we don't necessarily get involved in day-to-day goings on until there is something we should be involved in, which is what we're doing. So that's why we've hired the third-party person to help us review, because we care the same as you all do. And it's why we are taking all these comments in consideration. So I just felt the need to say that in plain speak, as was asked, and say that out loud. The other thing I did want to quickly and I know we all really need to go, but I wanted to ask quickly, Dr. Lloyd, when we were talking about the plan, the ESY plan. One of the things, and one of the comments in public comment was about the masks with students. And I wanted to ask you and make sure I'm not interpreting it incorrectly. I know it's still fluid and we have a lot of things between now and the fall that will take place. But it was pretty confidently said that they will not have to wear masks. And I do want to ask you about that because unless I'm reading the green state wrong with the PDE guidelines, that's not necessarily the case. And I might be reading it wrong, because that's why I want to ask you.
Right, there's a lot, you know, that I imagine that all the way up until we start school, more and more information will continue to come out. And the research that is emerging is showing that children are not as susceptible to COVID as adults are. And there isn't research to support children wearing masks. So we will continue to monitor that. A lot of the plan is written with flexibility for parents and flexibility for teachers. And if parents want their children to wear masks, and teachers will do their best to assure that children are wearing masks. I thought that Mrs. Marzella brought up a very good point about the bullying of students wearing masks. And so I can see that that would need to be taken into consideration as far as education. And that this is a choice, right?
And the carrying of it too. They might
Right.
not be as susceptible, which I'm not sure that that's conclusive.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to be careful of what we're saying as absolute, because we did say we have a lot between now and then. That's accurate.
There's information comes out every week.
Yeah.
And we're monitoring and we're adjusting as we can. I would just want to underscore that we are listening to what our parents are saying. And most of our parents want their students to come back to school in the fall. Many of our special education parents want their children to come to ESY in the school and not online. And so we are doing everything we can to develop a plan that allows us to do both. And so we will have ESY online for those parents that want to continue, that are just not comfortable yet, for their children to come back. And for those parents that are ready for their children to return because they think that that's the best mode of learning for them, then we will offer that as well. And so parents have a choice. We're fortunate to be in a school district where we can offer choice for parents. Our current, I said this at the beginning, and some people perhaps did not hear about the online format that we are planning for the OJR Cyber Academy. We're looking at a different platform. We all know that what our students experienced was what I call pandemic cyber school. We had to put that together very quickly with the technology and the resources that we had. When you run a cyber school, you use a platform that is very different than the platform that we've been using. And so we're currently in the process of researching that so that we are ready to go in the fall, and teachers have the opportunity to be trained in that platform. So that cyber program will look very different than what parents saw here this spring. We heard the feedback from parents loud and clear about how challenging remote learning was, and the platforms that we were using were as well. I'm just looking to see if there were any other notes that I had about the health plan, the health and safety plan. There was a comment that was made earlier about athletics, and athletics don't start until August, but preseason conditioning can start sooner. And so this health plan is written so that we are straddling those two, with preseason conditioning being able to start, and then athletic programs. There are very, very stringent guidelines that came out from the PIAA and from the National Council for Athletics that we will be adhering to. It certainly will not look the same as it does every summer for our athletes, but we will resume the preseason conditioning under this plan.
So I just wanted to make a comment to the community, to everybody who's, expressed concern here tonight. we're listening to you. We listen to, and we're hearing your concerns. And as I think every board member here said, we have those same concerns. And I think our foremost thoughts, and whether it's this plan, whether it's the, the allegations that came out, we have the health and safety and welfare of our kids in mind here. And that is exactly what we intend to be deliberate in our path forward here. And I just want to thank Emily too for telling her story. I think that was brave. And I applaud that, and I appreciate all the community coming out here. But we are committed as an organization. We know what our role is here, and that is for the health, the safety, the welfare. And O&J Roberts is a great school district. We have great people who work here, and we're going to get through this, and we're going to do it in a deliberate fashion. That's all I have to say.
I would also like to, piggyback on what Paul said. The passion and compassion that I've heard tonight is almost overwhelming. My daughter is going to be a senior next year, okay? And there is no way I'm going to allow anything to affect her safety. And likewise, I and this entire board is going to work our best to make sure all kids are safe. So whatever comes out of the third party, we're going to face it and do their recommendations. And whatever comes out of anything from the DAs, we'll follow and do. And it's just it's so sad and so moving at the same time. And I don't know how many people we heard from tonight, but it was just amazing. So thank you very much.
I would add, I also have a rising senior daughter. She actually had Mr. Rott this year, and it is an awful thing to have to know as your mother that your daughter's teacher was arrested and you can't tell her. So I am listening. Every one of us on the board are reading those emails as we get them. And we have an agreement that we're not going to all give different answers. So I know it may not feel to some of you like the entire board is not hearing you when you just get one small answer from one person, but please believe us that we are reading them. We really are paying attention.
I think an important first step is the motion we took tonight, the action we took tonight on hiring someone that knows what to look for and has been in these situations. We're all members of the community like you. We're angry at what has happened, but to have the knowledge and the expertise to know where to look and what to look at is an essential service that we owe to this community, which is why we took the step tonight to proceed, and honestly trying to proceed as quickly yet efficiently and thoroughly as we can. So this is the beginning of a process, and we look forward to the results of the audit to see what actions we can take to improve the safety that you all spoke so eloquently about tonight. So I too thank you for the comments. It's from public comment that I learn an awful lot.
I want to thank our school board for your support. When the previous board hired me, I was hired to make the tough decisions for the school district, and I've made a lot of tough decisions. One of the hardest parts is that we can't always disclose the details of those decisions that are made. And I know that that is hard for people to accept, to not know the whole story. I will continue to make those hard decisions for our students, for our teachers, and for our community. I ask that people keep an open mind, that there are multiple sides to a situation, but that I am mandated to uphold the policies and procedures of this district. And we will have investigations into situations that do not seem fair and do not seem just. And when we get the outcome of those investigations, the hard decisions will be made, irregardless of who is involved.
Thank you, Dr. Lloyd. Do I have any other discussion or follow-up? All right, I'm going to move on to item 15.1, board requests for information. Do we have any requests for information?
I just have one question. I guess this is for Jackie. With the whole ESY safety plan, you know, we have a lot of questions about the busing and safety of buses and things. And I'm wondering if we have had additional students register for that would want transportation, and are we in any danger of having too many students requiring transportation to keep those buses at that low capacity that we're hoping?
Mrs. DiMarino, what I can share is that the original communication that went out to parents was to see first, do they want their children to have online education versus in school? So once we have the response, the complete responses to that, then we'll be reaching out to the parents who prefer the in-school. And so we'll have more answers once we see the result of the responses. And then we'll be able to better assess that. So we'll keep you updated.
Okay, thank you.
Any other follow-up? No? All right, well, I wanted to thank the community for tuning in with us. We did have a very large attendance tonight, and I appreciate it. It's so great to see such an active community. All right, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Mrs. Prophet,